The outer space was dark, dreary, and deathly silent, teeming with an indescribable desolation. Yet, amidst this profound stillness, the glittering stars painted a uniquely beautiful picture. At this moment, Wuxia, a majestic dragon roar reverberated through the universe as a 3,000 meters or so long figure darted like a beam of starlight from the dark depths of the universe. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be an azure divine dragon, with a pair of majestic dragon eye radiating a divine glow. Dragon scales, the size of a palm, covered its entire body, shimmering with a jade-like luster. Its sharp dragon claws each held a ball emitting a faint, nebulous glow. More astonishingly, whirlpools, resembling nebulas, were quietly spinning around it. It looked extraordinarily divine, a life form that truly existed only in legends. Meanwhile, on Earth, since the advent of the era of transcendence, the astronomical observatories agencies around the globe, rarely known organizations, had been rapidly advancing. Although they had never fallen behind times, with the advent of the era of transcendence, their fundings had exponentially increased. After all, every single person desired to unravel the mysteries and unknowns of the universe. Just like China had launched countless spiritual energy monitoring satellites, other countries too were similarly engaged. At this moment, seemingly discovering, the astronomical observatories and even the spiritual energy monitoring satellites were staring dumbfounded at the images on their screens. A dragon, a real dragon, are you kidding? Even such a creature has appeared. And look, it's traveling through space. Can a living being really travel in outer space using just their physical body? Exclaimed cries echoed one after another, everyone left dumbstruck at the images on the screens. On the screen, a 3,000-meter-long azure dragon could be seen traveling through space, drawing a beautiful arc, like a streak of starlight. What was even more shocking was that this azure dragon seemed so fast that all the spiritual energy monitoring satellites were struggling to capture a clear image. They could only make out its form and color. Silence, an utter silence pervaded all the organizations monitoring outer space. Countless staff members, gazing at the blurry azure figure on the screen, wore complex expressions on their faces, filled with shock, astonishment, and also panic and confusion. No one knew how strong this azure dragon was, but just seeing it crossing outer space with its physical body gave an idea of its terrifying power. For a moment, some staff members broke into cold sweat. Fear and awe beset their hearts and souls. As for awe and admiration, the mere sight of such an unknown creature instilled fear that overwhelmed them. Even the high-ranking officials of China, who regard the true dragon as their totem, did not immediately recognize it as such. Their initial reaction was more about concern that this unknown creature might be an enemy to the human race. However, shortly after, pupils of countless people in various countries contracted, as they witnessed the streaking azure dragon suddenly halting before a massive, ochre-colored planet. It was Venus, the closest planet to Earth, a planet humans had landed on but not truly explored. At this moment, the azure dragon happened to be remaining stationary not far from Venus. Of course, this "not far" was just a visual illusion for humans. In reality, Wuxia was still several thousand kilometers away from Venus, but these kilometers were more than enough. It was within the range of his attacks and psychic power. In other words, Wuxia, a majestic dragon roar suddenly rose, accompanied by a continuous surge in Wuxia's spiritual energy. Endless spiritual energy from his body poured into the azure dragon's body. 100,000 spiritual energy. 1 million spiritual energy. 10 million spiritual energy. Spiritual energy continued to amass, causing the azure dragon's body to burst forth with dazzling divine light. From a distance, it appeared like a star, suddenly blazing with a dazzling light. At this moment, it was the middle of the night in the northern hemisphere of Earth. What's that? Sudden exclamations arose across cities, eyes glued towards the sky. At this moment, another star had suddenly appeared near the morning star, shining brightly. Its light flickered on and off, expanding and contracting. In the cycle of expansion and contraction, its brilliance grew increasingly intense. How can there be such a bright star? In surprise, people questioned aloud. Moreover, whether it was an illusion or something else, they could feel a faint sense of pressure, an indescribable feeling weighing heavily on their hearts. At the same time, millions of kilometers away. 90 million spiritual energy, Wuxia couldn't help but murmured in his mind. At this moment, he felt as if the azure dragon's body might explode. This was his azure dragon form. If it were Wuxia's branches or other roots, they would have exploded into pieces long ago. Such a terrifying accumulation of spiritual energy was enough to destroy everything. Now, at this moment, the vast sea of spiritual energy within the azure dragon was slowly channeled, bit by bit, until a dazzling glow erupted from its throat. Pure breath. Wuxia roared in his mind, no longer suppressing it. A massive shockwave spread through space as a beam of azure energy shot out from the azure dragon's gaping maws, tearing through space. Without any sound or anything, the azure beam, tearing through everything, shot towards Venus, growing wider as it continued to travel. In an instant, it had become dozens of times thicker. Finally, it then crashed into the distant star. Boom! A sky-shaking explosion echoed through the planet, accompanied by massive shockwaves. Visible to the naked eye, the spreading shockwave slowly formed a massive vortex around the azure beam that was visible even from outer space. Boom, 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 with continuously raging explosions, the beam tore through Venus' surface. It seemed as if it would pierce through the planet. In fact, it was not just seeming that way, it was actually happening. In the silent and lonely space, Wuxia's dragon roar suddenly became increasingly intense, before the azure beam swelled once more. It was accompanied by an even more terrifying explosion, which caused the entire Venus to shake. Continents continuously broke apart, mountains collapsed. Dust and smoke had engulfed the entire planet. And the moment the dust and smoke rose, a flash of light glimmered before it was covered by the dust. Damn, that was quick. With a light laugh, Wuxia flicked the dragon tail, maneuvering the azure dragon form towards the dust-filled Venus. At the peak of Tier 4, one would become a genuine natural disaster. Such a being could establish an ecosystem centered around itself on a planet. In other words, a peak Tier 4 transcendent, if allowed to unleash their full power unchecked, could potentially destroy an entire planet. As for a Tier 5 transcendent, it was obvious what they could do. At Tier 5, one's psychic power would undergo a true qualitative transformation. Furthermore, their psychic power could blend with spiritual energy, making it at least 10 times more powerful than a Tier 4 transcendent spiritual energy. And now, as a peak Tier 5, it was really not a surprising feat for Wuxia to nearly pierce through a star with a single blow. In fact, it was a very, very normal thing. Simply because, after enjoying numerous spiritual energy tides, the planet's resiliency had evolved a lot more. They could withstand even more terrifying power. Otherwise, the pure breath just fired by Wuxia would not have nearly pierced Venus, it would have directly obliterated it. Nevertheless, even with this, the sight of Wuxia's attack almost piercing through Venus had left human nations and countless mutant beasts in shock. At this moment, the entire northern hemisphere of Earth was gazing at the night sky. In the depths of the night sky, everyone witnessed an azure beam suddenly shooting from a twinkling bright star near Venus, that had appeared suddenly out of nowhere, crashing into the morning star. At the same time, massive yet radiant intermittent shockwaves of spiritual energy, like fireworks, blooming continuously, spreading further and further. This astonishing sight was witnessed by countless humans and mutant beasts. Is someone attacking the stars? How is that possible? Exclaimed cries filled the northern hemisphere, with humans and mutant beasts alike, staring at the night sky in disbelief. And compared to the humans and mutant beasts staring at the sky with naked eyes, humans with advanced technology saw it even more clearly. They witnessed a dragon breathing a dragon breath that pierced through an entire planet, creating endless shockwaves. Gulp, countless staff members, who had witnessed this sight, couldn't help but gulp nervously, their faces turning pale. Venus is not much different from Earth. If it can be pierced with one strike, that means Earth. The speaker did not even finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he meant. Their faces changed dramatically, and they broke into a cold sweat. Not only these ordinary staff members, but the top superhumans had turned pale. Now, a terrifying reality seemed to be before them, and that was that the entire Earth might be on the brink of destruction at the hands of an unknown entity. With their minds in a complete turmoil, countless superhumans stood dumbstruck. Everyone had been savoring the resurgence of spiritual energy, but now they suddenly found doomsday knocking at their doorsteps. Meanwhile, millions of kilometers away from Earth, Wuxia, who had finished collecting most of Venus' core, looked back at Earth with a strange expression. In fact, the entire thing was intentional on his part. Without his permission, how could the spiritual energy monitoring satellites capture his presence? Humans, no, the entire Earth, must be in turmoil. The sudden appearance of an unknown, extraordinarily powerful entity, one that has pierced through most of Venus with a single strike, would undoubtedly send everyone's minds reeling with the fear of an impending crisis looming over Earth. In such a dire situation, Misty Mountains will rise to the occasion, not only to confront this formidable entity but also to seize the initiative and strike back before the threat even reaches Earth. Wuxia's plan was actually very simple. He was simply planning on depicting Azure Dragon as the strongest entity of the habitable planet discovered by Wuxia. At the same time, he would also showcase that he had the necessary strength to contend with the Azure Dragon, letting everyone speculate that the reason the Azure Dragon pierced through Venus was also to warn Wuxia. Then, the two powerful entities, Wuxia and the Azure Dragon, would maintain a balance of power. Thus, the entire Earth would become a pawn in the imaginary confrontation between Wuxia and the fearsome Azure Dragon that had yet to arrive. After all, without an entity like Wuxia, Earth would be incapable of resisting the unknown entity, Azure Dragon. Therefore, to avoid destruction, following Wuxia and even joining Misty Mountains would become an inevitable choice. This was the initial vision of Wuxia's invasion of the elven planet, to unify the entire Earth, not necessarily in thought or spirit, but simply to stand united against the impending threat. As these thoughts swirled in Wuxia's mind, an amused smile appeared on Wuxia's face. The layout, the scouting, and the invasion itself, all were integral parts of a single, continuous process. Meanwhile, Wuxia would slowly reap the rewards from behind the scenes. Having collected the diamond-like blue star core and unearthed several large spirit stone mines from Venus, Wuxia promptly tore through space with a flick of his body and disappeared into the void space, vanishing from the human surveillance. After a few days, Wuxia had silently settled in the void space on the backside of the moon. At this moment, a flying blade was silently spinning in front of him, not far away from a dazzling fist-sized blue star core. Star cores were extremely precious treasures. They could harness the power of the stars and possessed extraordinary abilities. As for how and what, Wuxia still had no exact idea. Right now, he planned on refining this star core into the flying blade, infusing it with the power of the stars, thereby transforming it into a true stellar flying blade. For this, Old Ninth, Wuxia called out. Immediately, from the moon, Old Ninth, the short and chubby panda with a hat, staggered over. Master. A huge grin spread across Brewmaster's face as he watched the flying blade and the blue, diamond-like star core slowly emerge from the rift into the void space, a spark of excitement evident in his expression. A supreme treasure, a true supreme treasure. Perhaps Master doesn't know and hasn't realized it, but this star core is a true supreme treasure. Even just a small amount of star core added to ordinary equipment can significantly improve its quality. And now, a star core the size of a fist. Grinning with growing excitement, Brewmaster grabbed the floating star core. Master, rest assured, the stellar flying blade you want will be done without fail. Great. Nodding slightly, Yu was finally relieved. As the top smith of Misty Mountains, and even the top smith of Earth, if Brewmaster could not refine the stellar flying blade, no one else could. At this moment, as if recalling something, Yu asked softly, "What's the situation on Earth?" "Earth," murmured Brewmaster. As Yu's confidant, he knew a lot. He then straightforwardly answered, "Just as you've expected, the entire Earth is in panic, and many powerful experts are rushing to Misty Mountains. Even the Emperor of China, the Vatican, and some powerful transcendents from the Sea clan have sent representatives, seemingly to discuss something." At this point, Old Nine's smile widened, and he stated proudly, "It seems that our Misty Mountains is now recognized as the top force on Earth, and you're acknowledged as the strongest expert." Yu, hearing Brewmaster's statement, couldn't help but smile. "The strongest expert, I guess, that's indeed true. No one can rival me, whether openly or in secret. And now, it's time to unify Earth and deal with the foreign lands. However, the premise of all this is," Yu's eyes narrowed as his consciousness extended to a corner of the moon, where a grand and majestic palace of crystals, surrounded by imposing walls, stood tall. It was the Moon Palace, the grandest palace on the moon, filled with all kinds of facilities, from cultivation caves to scientific laboratories. And the owner of the laboratory was one of Yu's apostles there. A palace made of crystal stood majestically and grandly. The imposing walls stood silently. It was the Moon Palace. The grandest palace on the moon, where there were also hidden wonders. Even a scientific laboratory, unique to humans, was present. And the owner of this laboratory was one of Yu's apostles, Stellar Magneto. "Magneto," Yu's faint yet majestic voice echoed in the pale laboratory. "Master," in response, a young man with striking features and golden hair, wearing a red cloak, slowly bowed and greeted. And, nodding slightly, Yu asked, "How is the development of wormholes progressing?" "Master," combining extensive human knowledge on wormholes and individual guidance from the Master of Space, Owl, the development of wormholes has reached the initial stages. Reporting, Magneto slowly raised his hand. His spiritual energy surged as a vortex manifested in Magneto's palm. Wormholes were special conduits connecting distant regions of the universe. In the understanding of humans and Yu, wormholes were more like whirlpools in the sea, omnipresent but fleeting. Magneto could use magnetic sense to capture such whirlpools, even stabilize them for travel. Thus, rather than developing wormholes, it would be more accurate to say that Magneto was searching for these ubiquitous whirlpools in the universe. This was why Yu did not have his apostle develop a spatial channel. The universe was too vast. Merely tearing space to create a spatial channel for interstellar travel was far beyond the capability of a Tier 3 or even Tier 4 Master of Space. Yu reckoned that to create a spatial channel capable of crossing star systems, Owl would need to be at least a Tier 6 Transcendent. This was clearly not feasible in the short term. Therefore, searching for inherent cosmic channels was the best option for Yu and his associates. After all, wormholes were everywhere. However, compared to spatial channels, they required precise coordinates and a certain degree of luck. Luck indeed played a huge role in it, as a long search was needed to have a chance of finding a connection between Earth and the elven planet. However, these were not issues for Yu. Time was not an issue for Yu, he could wait. Currently, he was more focused on determining the stability of the wormhole and how many people it could accommodate. With this in mind, Yu asked again, "Magneto, is this channel stable?" It seemed that Magneto knew that Yu was going to ask this question. With a slight, proud smile, he replied, "Master, wormholes are a very stable type of spatial channel. As long as there is energy to maintain it, it will persist indefinitely. Saying so, he hesitated for a moment before adding, in this regard, we might still need human assistance. Assistance? Nodding, Magneto confirmed, I need top-notch human scientists gathered together to help me develop a set of instruments to stabilize the wormhole. If successful, we could establish a permanent channel across star systems in a short time. Unless impacted by external forces, it should remain stable. Upon hearing this, Yu's lips curved up in a smile. This was quite close to what he had in mind. The human race, after all, still had significant value in scientific research. With this thought, Yu instructed, go down to Earth and gather suitable humans. Also, try to acquire various weapons crafted by humans to replenish our Misty Mountains armory. After speaking, as if remembering something, Yu added, I hope that in the upcoming war, we'll see many of our Misty Mountains mutant beasts equipped with the finest human weapons. Yes, Master, Magneto promptly accepted the order. He was the most qualified to speak on this matter. After all, in America, there were several armies that combined technology and spiritual energy. Moreover, they weren't merely combining technologies. For instance, the Iron Gorewolf Regiment integrated the mutant Gorewolves, which had been domesticated by America, and equipped them with energy cannons securely mounted on their bodies. Channeling their spiritual energy into these cannons, the mutant Gorewolves could rapidly fire 2 lasers that would burn through everything in their path. It could be said that thanks to these advanced human weapons, Tier 2 mutant Gorewolves could achieve destructive power on par with Tier 3s. This was the terrifying aspect of advanced human weapons. Of course, the most terrifying one was Magneto himself. He was the one who originally led the integration of mutant beasts and technology. And now, he had joined Misty Mountains. And this meant that Magneto, as the commander of the Steel Legion of Misty Mountains, had the mutant beasts and even humans under his command were equipped with the most advanced equipment. Their combat power was noteworthy, and so was their destructive power. However, the Steel Legion was still in the development phase. The specifics still needed Magneto to organize. Yu would not interfere in this. Soon after Magneto received Yu's order and left the moon, screech, a sharp and piercing scream echoed through the moon, before a massive bird with 3 black plums, as elegant and mysterious as a phoenix, landed on the top of Yu's tree form. Master, should I also go down to establish my Sky Legion? With a smile, the demon phoenix showed a hint of anticipation. Currently, Misty Mountains had numerous legions. Large legions consisted of Natural Disaster Legion like Legion of Lightning and Legion of Earth. Smaller legions like the Wolf Legion and Ant Legion were formed by various clans. It could be said that Misty Mountains legions were truly combat units. In fact, having a powerful legion could even determine one's status in Misty Mountains. This was the main reason why the Demon Phoenix wanted to form the Sky Legion. With a legion under her command, not only would resources be tilted in her favor, but even Yu would regard her differently. Yu naturally would not refuse the Demon Phoenix's request, and gave his permission after a moment of contemplation, go ahead, and be careful along the way. Speaking this, he seemed to have recalled something and added, if possible, you should try to find a creature called the Undying Blood Raven and severely injure him. Injure him? A bit taken aback, the Demon Phoenix asked in disbelief. Why don't I just kill him? You can't kill him. A playful smile appeared on Yu's lips. The Undying Blood Raven was truly unkillable. So long as a single Blood Raven existed, his existence could not be erased, unless some means were used to sever the cause and effect or obliterate his soul. Killing him was quite a tricky issue, though it was not an issue for Yu. His doubt-protecting artifact, Radiant Galaxy, was more than capable of wiping him out from the face of this world. However, that was not Yu's intention. Rather than killing him, Yu preferred to subdue him. Suddenly, Yu raised his branch, as blood-red, raven-like mutant bird landed on it. Master, greeting in a soft voice, the lesser blood raven, which had participated in the martial arts tournament, appeared somewhat excited. This lesser blood raven was now at the late stage of transcendent Tier 3, just a step away from the peak of Tier 3. Even so, he was merely a clone of the undying blood raven. Although his strength was considerable among the undying blood raven's clones, compared to the terrifying main body of the undying blood raven which was in Tier 4, he could only exist as a clone, dependent on the main body. However, nothing was set in stone. If the main body was severely injured or if his power suddenly surpassed the main body, he could potentially replace the main body. And once he truly replaced the main body and absorbed the power of other blood raven clones, he would become the new generation of the undying blood raven, and a powerful natural disaster for Misty Mountains. This was why he was so excited upon hearing Wuxia's order to severely injure the undying blood raven. It was a matter of potentially replacing the main body and making a significant leap, which made her very eager. You know, if I agree to your request, I will definitely do it. But you also need to work hard to reach Tier 4 when your main body is severely injured, Wuxia teased. I don't want the demon phoenix to go through all that trouble only for other lesser blood ravens to benefit. Upon hearing this, the lesser blood raven's expression turned serious, and he promised, Master, I will double my efforts in training. Then, changing his tone, the lesser blood raven stated fiercely, if, even with Master's guidance, I cannot replace the main body, then I have no value for cultivation, and Master can destroy me. Wow! With a grin, Wuxia was surprised by the lesser blood raven's ruthlessness. As expected of a creature born with a curse, he's indeed exceptionally fierce and resolute. His resoluteness was striking, but Wuxia was not fazed by it. After all, when it comes to cruel and ruthless mutant beasts, Misty Mountains was not lacking in them. Slytherin, for instance, the terrifying Yamata no Orochi that devoured fear, was exceptionally cruel as well. Little Fifth, Golden Ant, though much more tame now, was once an extremely cruel and ruthless and resolute monster. Old Seventh, Titan, the evil dragon's cruelty was beyond words. Wuxia was not concerned about adding another cruel creature like the undying blood raven to his collection. Moreover, generally, the crueler the mutant beast, the more loyal they became once they were subjugated. Among Wuxia's subordinates, Slytherin and Golden Ant were epitome of loyalty. Now, Wuxia was treating this lesser blood raven with similar dedication. Not only had he promised him abundant resources, but he also had cleansed his with his own spiritual energy. More importantly, Wuxia had sent the demon phoenix to severely injure his main body, giving the lesser blood raven a chance to replace him. Throughout these measures, Wuxia could feel the intense and unspeakable fervor in the lesser blood raven's gaze. Wuxia was very familiar with this kind of gaze. Golden Ant and Titan had the same look. It seems that another natural disaster general is about to join my ranks. Smiling in his heart, Wuxia used a branch to sprinkle a few drops of life essence on the lesser blood raven. Caw caw, the lesser blood raven let out sharp and piercing cries, his blood-red feathers trembling. At the same time, his blood-red eyes shimmered with a lustrous glow, and his blood-colored feathers grew even more vivid. Meanwhile, in a corner of the Asian continent, whoosh, a fierce gale blew before a vast expanse of blood-colored clouds blanketed the night sky, blocking out the only sliver of starlight in the darkness. Caw caw, cruel and tyrannical bird cries echoed across the sky, sharp and piercing, came from the blood-colored clouds on the horizon. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be an extraordinarily large blood-colored bird, so massive that it blocked the clouds and the moon, stretching over several kilometers. Just then, as if noticing something, the giant bird's blood-red eyes, resembling two blood moons, suddenly fixed their gaze on the lights of the city below. The scent of life made it stop in its tracks. Caw, without a moment of hesitation, it took the attacking stance, releasing the pressure of the apex predator. Immediately, seemingly struck by a hammer, the ground shook violently, and the small, remote city fell into chaos. Oh my God, what is that? It's a mutant bird, a top-tier mutated bird at that. Run, run fast. Panicked cries filled the entire city, with countless humans fleeing in helter-skelter. Just as humans used some mutant beasts as food, some mutant beasts also viewed humans as prey. In the world governed by survival of the fittest, the roles of hunter and prey had always been fluid. In the wake of the resurgence of spiritual energy, the roles of hunter and prey had become even more fluid. And now, it was clear that this giant blood-colored bird viewed the humans of this small city as its prey. Caw caw caw, with a high-pitched cry, the giant blood-colored bird suddenly broke into an endless flood of blood-colored streams that poured down from the sky. Upon closer inspection, each stream was formed by a blood-colored raven. One after another, they merged into an endless flood of blood, sweeping through the entire city in the blink of an eye. By the time the ravens left, only blood-colored feathers, and a sea of crimson was left. And that blood was not the blood of the blood raven. The blood raven swept through Qianyu City. Hundreds of thousands of people living in the city have vanished without a trace. Not a single survivor had been left alive. In a corner of the alliance of Southeast Asian nations, many humans reacted with solemn and icy expressions, their faces tinged with anger. The blood raven was known as the most ruthless of the mutant birds on the coast of ASEAN. While he did not actively hunt humans, wherever he passed by, death and destruction followed. He was a beast of calamity in the truest sense. Damn it! Isn't there anyone who can subdue it? No. A soldier familiar with the blood raven responded, that blood raven is a natural disaster class entity. His power far exceeds our imagination. Even our generals have failed repeatedly in their attempts to defeat it. We even invited natural disaster class experts from China, but they returned in defeat. Rumor has it that the blood raven is at the peak of Tier 4, almost reaching the level of one of the world's top 10 natural disasters. At the mention of the top 10 natural disasters, many humans' faces stiffened. These natural disasters were beyond the realm of humans. To this day, none of the top 10 natural disasters had been defeated by superhumans. One could imagine what that implied. Besides, if any of the top 10 natural disasters truly wanted to, they could easily destroy a country. Now, with the expansion of the continents, the emergence of tens of thousands of islands and thousands of nations, the loss of one or two nations might not be noticed. However, if a major power like the ASEAN were to fall, it would be catastrophic. Unfortunately, they currently had no solution. The blood raven's power had exceeded their understanding and was far beyond what they could contend with. Hiya, a heavy sigh echoed in the office as it fell into silence. Shortly after, in a palace of ASEAN, a young girl with a voluptuous figure and a purple veil covering her face suddenly smiled. Just as I was worrying about the blood raven's disaster, Master has given me such a great surprise. As she spoke, the girl slowly stood up. Whoosh! Suddenly, with a gust of wind, flames engulfed the young girl's figure, and she vanished into thin air, as the flames slowly extinguished. Fire escape, a self-created ability of Aisha after consuming the flame elemental fruit, allowed her to merge with the vanishing flames, making her form completely disappear. Not only was she undetectable, but even her presence could not be sensed. This ability required precise control, far beyond mere elementalization. Just minutes later, on a prairie in ASEAN, a fire suddenly flared up in the meadow, which turned into a blazing fire in an instant. However, the moment the fire started, a graceful figure suddenly emerged from the sea of flames. Tap, 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 Aisha's seductive figure slowly walked out of the fire. Screech, with a sharp cry, a distant black bird with 3 plumes, noble and divine, lifted her eyes in surprise as she saw Aisha emerging from the flames. She proved herself to be Master's apostle. Her methods are mysterious and bizarre. I didn't even notice her arrival. Elder sister, are you here to deal with the blood raven? Aisha's soft voice drifted over. Not to deal with it, but to heavily injure it at Master's command. Hearing this, Aisha's lips curved into a slight smile. You should know that Blood Raven is quite difficult to handle. However, as one of the top 10 natural disasters, it's understandable for you to say that. Through their exchange, they had come to understand each other. After explaining the Blood Raven's lair, Aisha reminded her, "Sister, there is a treasure called Blood Crystal within the Blood Raven's lair, which is very beneficial for those who cultivate blood energy. If you can defeat him, you might bring some back to Misty Mountains." "Got it." Acknowledging, Demonic Phoenix unfurled her wings and shot towards the eastern sea, transforming into a streak of grayish light. On the shore of the eastern seas stood a peak, which was not known as Blood Raven Peak, simply because it was home to hundreds of thousands, even millions, of blood ravens. And today, screech, a piercing cry echoed through the heavens. Visible to the naked eye, countless black specks fell from the sky, covering an area of several dozen kilometers like raindrops. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be a rain of black feathers. The black feathers glistened with a cold and metallic luster, resembling swords, piercing straight towards the ground. Boom, 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 a series of massive explosions echoed throughout Blood Raven Peak, shaking the entire mountain and sending clouds of dust rising into the sky. Caw! Suddenly, an ear-piercing rose from the rising dust. At the same time, Demonic Phoenix spotted a massive blood-red bird with a pair of eerie red eyes like crimson moon taking flight, much to her joy. Accompanying the massive blood-red bird were countless smaller blood ravens that were continuously converging and merging into its body. In just a few breaths, the massive blood-red giant bird had grown several sizes larger. What a peculiar creature! Demonic Phoenix looked at the undying blood raven with admiration in her eyes. However, if one could share her vision, they would see a vision of the future in her gaze, which showed the undying blood raven's imminent attack in 3 seconds. The undying blood raven raised his talon as countless smaller blood ravens shot towards Demonic Phoenix, like a torrent. If I hadn't seen this in advance, I might have been in trouble. With a smile, Demonic Phoenix swiftly flapped her wings and swiftly retreated higher into the sky, leaving a streak of black light. At the same time, under her control, the countless black feathers that had been shot towards the ground previously began to tremble. Moments later, they slowly rose into the air before shooting straight towards the sky, much to the undying blood raven's shock and dismay. Boom, 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 thunderous claps erupted across the sky, followed by massive shockwaves. These shockwaves were the result of the clash between the sword-like black feathers and the streaking blood ravens. Each and every single collision was like a clash of blades. Boom, 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 amidst continuous thunderous roars, countless shockwaves emerged in succession, covering the vast expanse of the sky. The range of this coverage was estimated to be at least the size of 1 or 2 cities. Demonic Phoenix's power is indeed terrifying. Praising in a soft voice, a girl with purple veil in the distance revealed a look of admiration. Nodding Owl, also known as the 4th apostle of UZU and a space ability user, Lin Ze, spoke, a rare feat on her part, though it's my first time seeing it. I have heard of her reputation. She is rumored to be the most mysterious mutant beast on the continent, rooted by the shores of northern seas. I did not expect her to join our Misty Mountains. Is it strange that she joined our Misty Mountains? A playful smile appeared on Aisha's lips as she frankly added, now that the rise of our Misty Mountains is unstoppable, Demonic Phoenix's action to severely damage the scourge of the alliance of the Southeast nations will likely lead to the alliance's high-level officials offering many gifts soon. Will they? Shocked and stunned, Lin Ze questioned. They will. Aisha nodded affirmatively and casually explained, don't underestimate the current status of Misty Mountains in this world. Every move we make is being watched. Suppressing the undying blood raven so forcefully has caught the attention of many interested parties. If the Alliance does not want to become enemies with Misty Mountains, offering gifts is a natural response. Humans are very perceptive. In this regard, they are much better than any mutant beast. After a moment of contemplation, Lin Ziyi chose to remain silent. As a human, she naturally understood this. I guess, things are looking fine for now. At least the Misty Mountain's dominant position is unshakable. While Aisha and Lin Ziyi were chatting, in the sky. Screech, suddenly, a high-pitched screech ripped through the clouds. Looking up, one could see a large black bird, resembling a phoenix, suddenly spreading its wings in the depths of the sky. Creating a roaring turbulence, the massive black wings, seemingly adorned with stardust, flapped violently. Starburst, a cold voice echoed through the sky as the three plumes behind demonic phoenix, with a flap of her wings, suddenly erupted with a dazzling starlight. The starlight was dazzling and growing stronger and stronger by the moment. At one point, it was brilliant that one could not help but squint their eyes. Boom! Suddenly, a deafening roar filled the air as a terrifying streak of starlight fell upon the massive undying blood raven at some point. Caw, caw, heart-wrenching painful cries escaped the undying blood raven. However, before the blood raven could retreat, a black shadow streaked down the sky. Looking up, one could see demonic phoenix clawing in the air with one of her talons as she swooped down. At the same time, starlight started gathering in her massive talon before it grew bigger, reaching a size of a full meter, as she grabbed towards the massive blood raven. The sharp talons dug deep into the blood raven, causing countless blood-red feathers to fall from the sky. Blood, as crimson as the setting sun, rained down from the sky, and unending mournful cries filled the air. Despite the gruesome scene, there was an inexplicable sorrow and beauty in it. Even so, demonic phoenix did not dare to relax even a bit. Her eyes, capable of seeing far beyond ordinary vision, revealed that the blood-red feathers falling from the sky would soon reassemble into blood ravens, returning to the giant bird's body. So, despite the current gruesome sight, she decided to remain vigilant. Since even Divine Tree had praised the undying blood raven, she knew that he was no ordinary anomaly. Meanwhile, on the moon, caw, caw, a blood raven suddenly landed on the branches of Yu's tree body. His feather was as red as blood, and his eyes, resembling two blood moons, cold and mesmerizing. At this moment, caw, 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 the lesser blood raven let out high-pitched caws as Yu infused spiritual energy into him. More astonishingly, countless streams of life essence began to rise from the pool of immortality, flying towards the lesser blood raven. Mind and body unite as one. Forget the self, forget the world. Listening to Yu's guidance, the lesser blood raven's heart trembled. Then, he slowly spread his wings and opened his sharp beak wide, devouring the life essence in large gulps, much like a whale drinking water. Little one, gather some spirit. This is my first time performing this empowerment. With a light laugh, Yu's gaze showed a trace of anticipation. Empowerment was an ancient technique. It could rapidly enhance strength in a short time. However, this method was unstable and came with many side effects. Few would actually use it. Yu had little to lose, at most, he would need to rest for half a day. But the person undergoing the empowerment faced significant risks. It was a case of more harm than good. However, the lesser blood raven was different. He was already part of the undying blood ravens, meaning he was inherently a tier 4 transcendent. Now, by forcefully boosting his strength, Yu knew that despite the considerable side effects, he could temporarily surpass the main body. If the main body's injuries worsened and his strength weakened, the lesser blood raven might be able to replace him and absorb the power from other blood ravens. Compared to the lesser blood raven slowly reaching tier 4, this approach is much more reliable. With a smile in his heart, Yu admired his own impromptu decision. Forcing an empowerment on others often resulted in more harm than good, sometimes even damaging their foundations and severing their path of cultivation. But what was there to fear for the lesser blood raven? Once he truly absorbed the power from other blood ravens, everything could be compensated for, and he might even advance further. For Uzu, this was the true opportunity. Master, demonic phoenix has already engaged in fierce battle with the undying blood ravens. Suddenly, sweet Osmanthus' sweet voice rang in Uzu's ears. While Osmanthus was rooted on the moon, she was known for her formidable senses. In fact, every place touched by moonlight fell within her sensory range. At this moment, it was night time in the northern hemisphere of Earth. Sky was filled with bright and shiny stars and a full moon hung high. Naturally, Osmanthus could detect the terrifying battle fluctuations through the moonlight. Not only Osmanthus but even Uzu could clearly feel the intensity of the clash. These two must have spiritual energy of around 50 to 60 million each. Uzu marveled to himself, surprised by the level of power. Demonic Phoenix was exceptional from birth. Back when Uzu was ranked first among the top 10 monstrosities of the continent, she was ranked second. Later, when she joined Misty Mountains, Uzu personally baptized her using the pool of immortality, pushing her strength to newer heights. However, the undying blood raven was another matter. He did not have anyone's support, yet his spiritual energy was comparable to demonic phoenix. Uzu could not help but further recognize the terror of the undying blood raven. While everyone else practiced alone, it was as if millions of blood ravens were cultivating just for himself. This kind of training method was something even Uzu envied. If not considering the possibility of being replaced by his clones, this method of cultivation is truly perfect. Admiring blood raven to himself, Uzu's gaze shifted to the lesser blood raven. Seemingly sensing Uzu's attention, the lesser blood raven tensed up, looking somewhat nervous. Little one, this opportunity only comes once. If your main body realizes you might replace him, I'm sure he won't hesitate to risk serious injury to erase you through some mystical means. Do you understand? Understood. The lesser blood raven firmly nodded, a resolute expression on his face. Had it not been for the divine tree's reminder, he would not have considered this. As the main body, how could he not have means to eliminate his clones? Presumably, the moment he stepped into Tier 4 would also be the moment his soul and body would be erased from this world, while his power would become the nourishment of the main body. The lesser blood raven let out a cold snort, his gaze growing colder. Well then, seize this opportunity to compete with your main body. Dropping this sentence, Uzu's spiritual energy surged. Immediately, with a roar, a visible, glass-like spiritual energy shield enveloped the lesser blood raven perched on Uzu's branch. This was Uzu's protection. It would shield the lesser blood raven from harm. This harm would naturally come from the main body when he sensed the surge in the lesser blood raven's power, attempting to annihilate him. While others may not have an idea, how could he not? After all, he himself could eliminate his apostles from thousands of kilometers away. Thus, the undying blood raven's main body probably had similar means. Unfortunately for you. You encountered me, everything about your existence is not a secret to me. With an increasingly playful smile, Uzu chose to quietly watch over the lesser blood raven. Not long after that, boom, with a tremendous explosion, the aura of the lesser blood raven visibly surged. His body grew bigger and bigger, and emitted a glaring red light. From afar, he looked like a blood-red sun. Well. The undying blood raven, who was engaged in a fierce battle with demonic phoenix, exclaimed out of instinct, abruptly lifted his gaze towards the bright moon in the night sky. Just moments ago, he had sensed that a body was on the verge of breaking through to Tier 4. This, truly is the blessing of heaven. Whether out of excitement or elation, a thrilled look blanketed on the undying blood raven's face. Just when I was worried about how to deal with demonic phoenix, one of my clones is about to break through to Tier 4. If I devour this clone, my strength would increase dramatically and taking care of this demonic phoenix would be much easier. With this thought, the undying blood raven promptly sprang into action, immediately attempting to annihilate the soul of the clone through the mysterious connection between the main body and clone. However, the next moment, How is this possible? The undying blood raven had a lump in his throat when he found himself unable to eliminate the clone. It's an illusion. It must be an illusion, reassuring himself repeatedly. The undying blood raven used his methods to annihilate the clone's soul once more. However, what awaited him was a complete silence. Adding more to his dread, the aura of that clone had somehow become even more terrifying. This is impossible, the undying blood raven roared in fury, his rage reaching the heavens. His body erupted with a glaring red light, with his aura growing even more ferocious and dreadful. Flapping his wings, his gaze fixated on the bright moon in the sky. However, just as he was about to act, screech, with a piercing screech, demonic phoenix blocked him. At the same time, on the moon, the body of the lesser blood raven was growing larger and larger inside a translucent shield resembling an inverted glass bowl. His blood feathers became even more vivid. However, this was still not the most important thing. The most eye-catching were the countless blood raven phantoms incessantly screeching outside the inverted glass bowl shield as they madly kept attacking the spiritual energy shield. Is this how the undying blood raven annihilates a clone? Looking at the countless blood ravens surrounding the spiritual energy shield, Wuxia was glad that he had kept a careful watch and personally protected the lesser blood raven. Otherwise, during the breakthrough of the lesser blood raven, his soul would have been torn by these thousands of blood ravens, annihilated completely. With a smirk, Wuxia looked at the lesser blood raven inside the spiritual energy shield and reminded, still not trying to seize his power. This is the only chance you have. Yes, master. Immediately, the lesser blood raven let out a sharp cry, which aura surging even more terrifyingly. And at that moment, seemingly sensing this, demonic phoenix also cast a deep glance at the bright moon in the sky. Do I need to severely injure the undying blood raven in a short time? Lightly chuckling in his heart, demonic phoenix looked at the undying blood raven, who was staring intensely at the moon, and a cold glint flashed in her eyes. Looks like it's time to get serious. At the drop of this, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from demonic phoenix with a deafening roar. Adding more to the dread, demonic phoenix's form expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, its elegance and mystery replaced by ferocity and savagery. And with the change in its form, the aura of an apex predator was fully revealed. Kill! With a roar, a massive swarm of black feathers, like sharp swords, tore through the sky and shot towards the undying blood raven. Caw, 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 sudden, piercing cries shook the entire sky. Looking up, one could see blood raining down from the sky. The undying blood raven's entire body was bathed in fresh blood, yet he did not care about this. After all, as a creature known for his indestructible and unkillable nature, even if the injuries were 10 times worse, he would recover in an instant. But, things were different now, for he could sense someone seizing his power. Caw, caw, the high-pitched cries of the undying blood raven were so sharp and piercing that they could even cause the stone to shatter. Furthermore, his caws carried an inexplicable fury. But before he could do something about it, screech, with a sharp screech, demonic phoenix high up in the sky, dived once more. He hasn't recovered to his peak. Demonic phoenix could not help but lightly chuckle, noticing the anomaly in the undying blood raven. Previously, he was simply an unkillable monster. He kept recovering from every injury, but now. Interesting. This time, his power had diminished a bit from the heavy blow. I guess, the lesser blood raven has taken this opportunity to seize his power, murmuring to himself, demonic phoenix's eyes burned with an inexplicable fervor. As a matter of fact, the lesser blood raven was the vice-commander of the Sky Legion appointed by her. If she could accelerate the lesser blood raven's evolution by repeatedly heavily wounding the undying blood raven, demonic phoenix would be more than happy. With this, I have one more reason to kill you, sneering, demonic phoenix shot its black feathers once again, that rained down on the undying blood raven. Meanwhile, thousands of kilometers away, on the summit of the moon, caw, the lesser blood raven, now grown to a size of 10 meters, let out a caw while perched on Yu's canopy. Power had been surging within him continuously, flowing mysteriously into his body like a roaring river. It felt as though his body might burst at any moment. However, with a single cycle of spiritual energy, this power was seamlessly integrated into his body, truly becoming his strength. Master, I've successfully seized a portion of his power. The lesser blood raven cried in excitement. He barely contained his joy and continued to grasp the power. It seems things are going quite smoothly. A smile appeared on Yu's lips, feeling satisfied. As a matter of fact, with a Tier 5 transcendent like him orchestrating behind the scenes, what could go wrong? Though the undying blood raven was quite enigmatic, he was ultimately only a Tier 4 transcendent. Moreover, all of the undying blood raven's secrets were laid bare to Yu thanks to his ability to see status screens. Given all this, it would indeed be surprising if the undying blood raven could escape Yu's schemes. The night grew deeper, even the stars and moon grew brighter. Yet, whether it was an illusion or not, the bright moon in the sky seemed to turn red. Look at the moon, someone suddenly pointed out, prompting others, who had just walked out of a tavern in Shanghai, to look up at the night sky. Moments later, they saw a blood-red moon hanging high in the sky. The moon has turned red? How is that possible? How can there be a blood moon? Taken aback, exclaimed cries filled the air. A blood moon was not a good omen, at least in their understanding, a blood moon was an ominous sign. Moreover, whether it was an illusion or not, a sense of unease suddenly rose in their hearts when looking at the blood moon in the sky. People with bad tempers even felt an inexplicable impulse rising in their hearts. Just then, a cry suddenly rang in everyone's heart. Following that, in the incredulous gazes of humans and other mutant beasts, a blood-red phantom of a crow appeared and vanished to the moon. All this happened in an instant, yet countless humans and mutant beasts clearly saw it. This is bad, this is really bad. The appearance of Blood Moon and the crow is a major omen, a lamenting cry echoed through the crowd, causing everyone to look each in worry. Some even turned pale. Meanwhile, on the moon. Boom, a terrifying aura skyrocketed into space, with blood-colored torrents manifesting high above. Amidst these torrents, a blood-red raven, several hundred meters in size, was perched calmly on Yu's canopy. When it spread its wings, the blood-red aura surged even more. Its pairs of eyes, resembling twin blood moons, glistened with a fierce yet magical gleam. What was even more terrifying was the ghastly glow flickering deep within its eyes, as if it was silently communicating with something. Suddenly, it let out an ear-piercing cry that resonated for thousands of kilometers. At the same time, the blood-red torrents swirling in the sky churned even more fiercely as a whirlpool appeared around it. Its aura rose at a pace visible to the naked eye. In an instant, its aura broke through to the mid-stage of Tier 4, yet the surge in his aura showed no signs of stopping. Rather, it accelerated at even more frightening speed, not facing any kind of bottleneck. And with an explosive surge in its aura, an increasingly glaring red light surged from it, dyeing a large part of the moon red. At this moment, all the powerful creatures on the moon, such as Brewmaster and Sarcosuchus, lifted their gazes, staring intently in this direction. Its ominous aura even sent chills down their spines. Even the usually unexpressive Sarcosuchus narrowed his eyes slightly. The undying blood raven, really is a formidable opponent. A grin appeared on Sarcosuchus' face, revealing a hint of anticipation. Just then, another increasingly high-pitched caw reverberated through the moon, as a phantom of giant blood raven appeared in the sky, as if proclaiming its arrival. The undying blood raven, greets master, with a thunderous shout, the massive blood-red phantom that covered the sky, bowed its head to Yu's true form. Undying blood raven, murmuring, Yu gazed intently at the massive blood-red bird, about 100 meters in size, not far away. His feathers were as crimson as blood, shimmering with a touch of brilliance, and shaped like a sword. His body was streamlined, neither too fat nor too thin, perfectly outlining his form. His sharp talons gripped tightly onto a branch in Yu's canopy, perching upright. But this was not the most important thing. The most important were his eyes that resembled blood moons. They seemed to carry an inexplicable aura. Even Yu felt a sense of restlessness rise in his heart as he looked into them. He was not called ominous bird for nothing. Moreover, the undying blood raven, burdened with a curse, was truly the epitome of disaster. Wherever the undying blood raven went, he was followed by death and destruction, or some other sort of omen. And this was not deliberate on the part of the undying blood raven. He simply sensed the calamitous omen before it even occurred. Of course, this was not a unique ability of the undying blood raven. In fact, every crow had this ability. Unmutated ones preferred eating carrion. Whenever they hovered in the sky, it was almost an indication that a creature's life was ending. Now, the undying blood raven had amplified this instinct to the extreme. Child of calamity, Yu couldn't help but murmur, noticing a remarkable ability on the undying blood raven's status screen. Child of calamity, like a child of calamity, it can sense blood and death, and can even detect impending disasters that are about to occur in unknown places. This was quite a remarkable ability. However, compared to this ability, the undying blood raven's other powers were even more terrifying. As Yu focused his gaze on the undying blood raven, a blood-red status screen appeared in Yu's sight. Race, Undying Blood Raven. Rank, Tier, for innate talent, Undying Blood Raven. Unlike ordinary creatures, the undying blood raven's body consists of countless blood ravens, each an independent entity, yet they can merge to become a more powerful life form. The consciousness of the undying blood raven is controlled by the most powerful individual among these ravens. To them, death is merely a return to the mother body, including consciousness and memory. Therefore, killing each raven requires erasing its soul, otherwise, it will soon face the mad revenge of the undying blood raven. Unique abilities, army of clones, each of his feathers are capable of transforming into a blood raven. And with thousands upon thousands of feathers, he could unleash a blood-red army. Child of calamity, like a child of calamity, it can sense blood and death, and can even detect impending disasters that are about to occur in unknown places. Piercing cry, the unique cry of the blood raven can tear apart a person's soul. Restoration, by sacrificing a clone, it can erase all injuries and return to the strongest state. Cursed eye, its blood-red eyes are cursed, and can cast a curse with just a gaze. After going over it thoroughly, Yu's eyes could not but reveal a color of shock and intrigue. He indeed has the qualification to have undying before his name. The ability to erase all injuries by sacrificing a clone and return to its peak alone is quite formidable. In other words, he can transfer his injuries. All kinds of emotions rushed in Yu's heart as he wondered how terrifying it would be to possess such an ability. If I can transfer my injuries to my willow leaves, that would be a sight to behold. However, the next moment, with a smile, Yu suppressed these thoughts. Ultimately, these are just cheap tricks. If one's strength is inferior, an enemy capable of killing you once can naturally kill you 1,000 times. Only when the difference in strength is not too great can this ability be used to drag an enemy to death or preserve one's own life. For someone at Yu's level, this ability was not so powerful. To say nothing of other factors, Yu's doubt-protecting artifact, the Radiant Galaxy, could launch millions of attacks as long as it was infused with an uninterrupted supply of spiritual energy, enough to completely vaporize the undying blood raven. If this guy could further develop this ability, it might truly become troublesome. With a smile, Yu looked up and congratulated, "Welcome, undying blood raven." "Thank you, Master. I am deeply indebted to you for this significant favor and assure you that I will not fail to meet your expectations," came the firm reply. Yuziyu nodded in satisfaction, feeling pleased. After all, the addition of a top-tier natural disaster-class powerhouse to his fold was quite a reward in itself. With this thought in his mind, Yuziyu frankly stated. The road ahead is up to you now. You may withdraw for now. Yes, master. Smiling, the blood raven nodded slightly. However, moments later, to Yuziyu's astonishment, with a deafening explosion, the undying blood raven blew up into pieces, transforming into thousands of blood ravens. Caw, 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 one after another, the thousands of blood ravens, like a rain of blood, scattered and landed on various parts of Yuziyu's tree form, before lowering their heads and actively began to clean the filth accumulating on his tree form. Actually, it was not filth per se. It was just that Yuziyu's main body was so vast, with a canopy as large as a small continent, that occasional fallen leaves or fur from other mutant beasts was inevitable. Now, these thousands of blood ravens acted like cleaners, tending to Yuziyu's tree form. This guy, Yuziyu smiled and did not stop them. Although this was something he could easily resolve with a surge of his spiritual energy, it was still a way for the undying blood raven to repay him. Moreover, it was worth noting that the willow leaves occasionally fallen from Yuziyu's tree body were quite valuable. If consumed by a clone of the undying blood raven, it could lead to its evolution. So, this might not be a bad way for the undying blood raven to cultivate. In the future, this little fellow might also have a chance to become my spirit beast companion. While pondering, Yuziyu could not help but think of what Golden Monkey had mentioned before. Most heaven and earth treasures in the world have spirit beast companion. For him, Yuziyu, there seemed to be quite a few mutant beasts that could become his spirit beast companions. The nine tails that often resided in the canopy. The bull demon that meditated under the tree. And now, the undying blood raven that helped him clean up the filth. As night grew cooler, the moon's surface no longer resembled its former desolation. Thick and towering trees had risen to the sky, their green foliage creating a shade. And amidst the bountiful forest of the towering trees, white pathways of jade were laid out, forming roads. At the end of these roads were areas with clouds of mist lingering in the air. Faintly, one could make out a celestial palace hidden within. Further away, one could also see clear lake water rippling gently in the soft breeze, creating delicate waves. Tiny splashes shimmered with a dazzling light under the faint glow. This was the current moon. It truly resembled a paradise now. However, more striking than these picturesque landscapes were the sights of exotic beasts galloping across the land, and the birds flying in the vast, misty sea of clouds. At this moment, Spirit Butterfly, with a gentle call, a ball of light rose in the distance. The ball, as large as a jade plate, emitted a soft and warm glow, carrying an indescribable warmth. Seeing this, Yuziyu's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of a smile passing over his face. Spirit Butterfly, now an elemental general of Yuziyu, an embodiment of light, could transform into the most dazzling radiance. She could not only shatter the sky but also move with the speed of light, which had made her a true top-tier receiver of the elemental fruit. And apart from her, in another corner, Nether Tiger, with another call, boundless darkness spread into the surroundings. This darkness seemed alive, rolling in like waves from afar, with each wave higher than the other. Amidst the rolling waves, a massive black tiger emerged from a swirl of darkness. Its eyes glowed with a piercing intensity, and its long, jet-black fur billowed in the wind, radiating an aura of overwhelming dominance. Nether Tiger, originally named Shadow Tiger, was the strongest member of the Tiger clan after White Tiger, who won Yuziyu's recognition and was secretly granted the Dark Elemental Fruit, becoming an embodiment of darkness. As for the other candidate for the Dark Elemental Fruit, Ling Feng, Yuziyu did not show favoritism, and after a brief contemplation, provided another opportunity. Of course, this was not important. What mattered now was that both Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger had simultaneously reached the natural disaster class today. Screech, screech, roar, roar, with screeches and roars, two terrifying auras skyrocketed. Looking up, the world was painted in black and white, one side was bright as day, while as dark as night. The intersection of the black and white colors drew a perfectly straight line, as if clashing with each other, showing no signs of retreat. Screech, with an even more high-pitched shrill, Spirit Butterfly spread her wings. A dazzling light immediately burst forth, illuminating a small portion of the moon. On the other side, Nether Tiger was equally resolute. Roar, giving it out a roar, his four limbs braced on the summit of the dark waves as boundless darkness gathered once more. You too, a sudden voice interrupted the confrontation between the two majestic beasts. Upon hearing this, both trembled, then lowered their heads respectfully and greeted in succession. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Master. In unison, the awe-inspiring presence receded, revealing a golden spirit butterfly about 2 meters in size and a giant black tiger several meters in size. The fact that both of you have reached Tier 4 by the 7th day after consuming the elemental fruit is truly remarkable. You guys are really amazing. Wuxia expressed genuine admiration from the bottom of his heart. Thank you very much, Master, for bestowing me this huge opportunity, Nether Tiger said, stepping forward to express his gratitude. This is what you deserve. Wuxia replied and explained, when it comes to understanding dark energy, no one in Misty Mountains can match you. This was not a mere compliment from Wuxia. In terms of understanding darkness, Nether Tiger was on par with a typical Tier 4 transcendent. For instance, in the martial arts tournament, he split into 9 and created 9 shadows each with at least 70% of his own combat power. The Tao of Shadows was a branch of dark energy. And in this regard, Nether Tiger was quite exceptional, the very best. Seeing such talent, Wuxia naturally valued it and bestowed the dark elemental fruit upon Nether Tiger. However, Wuxia did not expect Nether Tiger's talent to be so astonishing that he would break through to Tier 4 in just 7 days. Moreover, turning his gaze, Wuxia looked at Spirit Butterfly. She is also exceptionally talented. It seems our Misty Mountains is truly going to flourish, Wuxia marveled, feeling even more confident about the strength of Misty Mountains. With the vast array of experts, it's already far superior to other major forces. Moreover, Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger had recently both advanced to Tier 4. To top it off, the recent addition of the Undying Blood Raven further strengthened our ranks. At this moment, as if sensing Wuxia's thoughts, Caw, with a sudden cry, a red light surged above Wuxia's tree body. With the emergence of this dazzling red light, the countless blood ravens resting on Wuxia's canopy flapped their wings, merging rapidly, becoming a giant, glowing red bird. This was the Undying Blood Raven, the most recent and powerful natural disaster under Wuxia's command. As for how powerful it was, at least under Wuxia's command, there seemed to be no real challenger who could kill him. Even Sarcosuchus and Brewmaster, who had fought him multiple times, found it hard to inflict a severe blow. His almost immortal nature truly made him stand out among the rest. He had earned the recognition of countless mutant beasts for his undying title. Master, gently calling out, the Undying Blood Raven, now truly united as one, lowered his noble head. Nodding slightly, Wuxia instructed, Blood Raven, test the strength of Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger, and help them hone their skills. Yes, Master, accepting the order, Blood Raven flapped his wings hard, as red light burst forth, dyeing the sky red. At the same time, a giant bird, covering the entirety of the space above, rose high up into space. On the summit of the moon, it was as white as noon, as black as midnight, and as red as blood. Amidst this clash of 3 colors, a spine-chilling aura surged into the sky. Do you think they have any chance of winning? Looking at Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger confronting Undying Blood Raven, Brewmaster suddenly turned to Sarcosuchus and curiously asked. I don't think so. After a moment of contemplation, Sarcosuchus replied and then further explained, unlike other mutant beasts, the most terrifying aspect of Undying Blood Raven is his immortality. It's next to impossible for someone of the same level to destroy him. Although Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger have remarkable talents and have consumed elemental fruits, they are still likely far inferior to Undying Blood Raven. Brewmaster nodded slightly in agreement. The methods of Undying Blood Raven were indeed hard to tackle. Not long ago, Brewmaster and Undying Blood Raven had sparred with each other. Their spar lasted from day to night and then from night to day, with neither side able to overcome the other. Undying Blood Raven could not break Brewmaster's defenses. Similarly, Brewmaster had no way to deal with Undying Blood Raven, who could easily transform into thousands of Blood Ravens. TSK, clicking his tongue, Brewmaster focused his gaze on the horizon and stated, "I'm quite looking forward to the power of these two elemental fruits." "I'm looking forward to it as well." Sharing a smile, Sarcosuchus's lips curved up slightly. At this moment, in the space above, no words were exchanged, just silent, sharp gazes. Accompanied by this were the increasingly intense auras of the three beasts, causing a strange phenomenon to appear in the sky. A round sun rose behind Spirit Butterfly, radiating a glaring light in all directions. On the other side, endless waves of darkness rose behind Nether Tiger, each wave higher than the last, which were ultimately about to crash over the head of Undying Blood Raven. Roar! With a thunderous roar, Nether Tiger lunged at Undying Blood Raven. The boundless darkness seemed to come alive, twisting into a giant black tiger leaping into space. At this moment, darkness seemed to be the clothing of Nether Tiger. What was even more suffocating was that this attack, although terrifying and tore the space apart, was deathly silent. This was the power of darkness, silent but deadly. Good timing. With a loud laugh, Undying Blood Raven advanced instead of retreating. He let out a fierce cry and dived down, transforming into a blood-red beam of light. Boom! Soon afterward, the two clashed with a thunderous roar. Their collision unleashed a terrifying shockwave that generated a Category 12 hurricane, sending countless mutant beasts sprawling. Even more terrifying were the successive ripples spread across the space. However, at this moment, roar! A mournful roar echoed as the boundless waves of darkness began to retreat, seemingly unable to endure any longer. However, before it could sink further, a warm and gentle voice suddenly echoed in Undying Blood Raven's ear, "Do you know the speed of light?" "What?" Taken aback, Undying Blood Raven, who was enveloped by blood-red spiritual energy, had a drastic change in his expression. For at that moment, a brilliant light suddenly magnified in his pupils. So fast that it was really hard to believe. Then, with a loud boom, the blood-red spiritual energy wrapping around Undying Blood Raven shook violently. Crack, crack, with each cracking sound, the blood-red spiritual energy encasing Undying Blood Raven exploded into pieces instantly, as that brilliant beam of light, in a moment of daze, struck Undying Blood Raven's wings with a deafening clap. In a moment, the blood-red wings of Undying Blood Raven seemed unable to bear it, and much to the helplessness of Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger, it split into countless blood ravens, blanketing the entire space above. And this was the terrifying aspect of Undying Blood Raven. After sustaining a certain amount of damage, he would transform into countless blood ravens and then sacrifice one to transfer the damage. At this time, if one looked closely, they would see the blood ravens once again gathering, forming a blood-red wing, completely intact. Only a blood-red feather remained in the sky, slowly drifting down. What a troublesome ability! With rare complaint, Nether Tiger's gaze became sharp before he let out a roar and pounced once again. Boom, 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 thunderous explosions filled the sky above as spiritual energy storms erupted one after another. From time to time, strange phenomena also appeared. The brightly lit sky would suddenly be replaced by an endless night, but then all of a sudden, dazzling blood light tore through the darkness and daylight. This was the terrifying clash of Spirit Butterfly, Nether Tiger, an undying blood raven. The strength of Nether Tiger lies in his mastery of the Tao of Shadows. He can create multiple shadow clones and remain silent and elusive, with every shadowy corner serving as a potential hiding place for his true body. Wuxia gave his evaluation, revealing a hint of admiration in his voice. As expected of the battle-hardened Nether Tiger. His battle sense is quite amazing. He is actually using elementalization to travel through darkness and ambush undying blood raven from shadows every now and then. As for Spirit Butterfly, turning his gaze, Wuxia looked at the sky, where Spirit Butterfly seemed to tear through the dark sky, like a streak of light. Her form was unseen, only the light streaking through space was visible. Yet every time she streaked across, she would pause for a moment before shooting straight in another direction. Although she was fast to the point of being incredible, she was clearly somewhat clumsy. Moreover, even if she managed to land an attack on undying blood raven, it did not seem to have much impact. Her understanding of the light elemental fruit is still lacking. While the speed brought by the light elemental fruit is indeed terrifying, light travels in a straight line, making it easy to dodge. Also, in his contemplation, Wuxia noticed that Spirit Butterfly did not seem adept at combat. Compared to the battle-experienced Nether Tiger, which now attracted most of Undying Blood Raven's firepower, Spirit Butterfly seemed more like it was occasionally taking advantage of the situation. This one still needs a lot of training. Sighing inwardly, Wuxia began to consider the future of Spirit Butterfly. Though Spirit Butterfly disliked combat, it was unavoidable. With great power comes great responsibility. One cannot let personal preferences affect what they needed to do. After all, having consumed a top-tier elemental fruit, it would be a tremendous waste if Spirit Butterfly could not apply it in battle. While a heated battle was taking place on a peak of the moon, on Earth. Following the appearance of an unknown creature piercing Venus, the blood moon rising, and the ominous cries of crows, a series of phenomena that shocked the entire world, both humans and mutant beasts were on high alert. At this moment, shocking news swept across Earth: another planet with life has been discovered, and it harbors a complete civilization. Not long ago, a top expert from that planet launched a sneak attack on Earth, which was ultimately thwarted by the divine tree of Misty Mountains. In a fit of rage, the attacker pierced through Venus to vent their anger. The event witnessed by everyone a few nights ago was caused by this unknown expert. Humans were stunned upon hearing this news. What? Another planet? Huh? How did we suddenly discover another planet with life? And why did their expert attack us? Are you stupid? It's the dark forest hypothesis. They probably saw us as easy prey and wanted to plunder our planet's resources. Who would have expected the presence of Misty Mountain's tree monster? So, if it weren't for Tree Monster's intervention, we might have. Similar discussions erupted in cities around the world. Each conversation ended with countless humans falling into silence, reaching the same conclusion: if not for the Tree Monster's intervention, judging by the phenomena witnessed that night, Earth itself might have been pierced through by that unknown expert, resulting in a catastrophe of unimaginable scale. Billions of lives would have been lost. Damn, that night would have been our last. In the end, we were saved by the Tree Monster. Well, it is what it is. Even though the Tree Monster is vicious, it's still a denizen of Earth. With aliens invading, as the strongest creature on Earth, it naturally wouldn't sit idly by. But I don't understand, since it could stop the unknown enemy, why didn't it eliminate them? You probably forgot, the Tree Monster's main body is a tree. Its combat power and defense are unparalleled, but in terms of pursuit, it might be weaker than ordinary natural disaster-class beings. That's true. More and more discussions echoed through the streets and alleys, even reaching deep mountains and forests. Meanwhile, in the Chinese city ruled by the Empress, Flame City. Has the news been released? Yes, Master. Currently, all information regarding the alien world has been released. We have also emphasized that the divine tree is good at defense but not at offense. Reporting, a figure clad in a black robe respectfully looked at the red-clad woman sitting in the main hall not far away, the Empress, He Ling Er. He Ling Er was a peerless genius. She was also known to the public as the leader of C.N. Seated behind the table, Ling Er nodded in acknowledgement, a hint of smile flashing across her lips. That's great. As she commended, Ling Er seemed to remember something and reminded, remember what I told you before, portray the alien world as extremely hostile and aggressive. Everyone should get the impression that if we do not counterattack, all that awaits is endless invasion. Yes, Master, replying in a firm and cold voice, the figure in the black robe pursed his lips. This was the Skynet, an intricate network spanning the entire world like an invisible giant net, present in every corner. Their biggest task now was to paint the alien world hostile and lead the entire world to counterattack. And also portray the divine tree as the pillar safeguarding Earth and relieving the public's worries. At the same time, the president of one of Earth's most powerful nations, China, cooperatively released two pieces of news. The first news confirmed the existence of the alien world, and also released the images of outer space, which showed a dragon-like figure breathing out a beam of light that pierced through Venus. The second news issued a nationwide conscription. Due to the sudden appearance of the alien world, a full-scale conscription has been immediately enacted to protect Earth. Simultaneously, all areas of military construction will be reinforced. At the same time, another superpower, America, proposed, to avoid fighting in our own backyard, it might be worth considering initiating the war first, essentially launching a true invasion. Amidst these plans, Stellar Magneto, who had returned to America, once again donned his helmet. He was now the supreme commander of the American Army of Superhumans. In secret, however, he was also the natural disaster general of Misty Mountains. Under Yu's hint, he had temporarily abandoned his role as the natural disaster general of Misty Mountains to fully assume control of America. As the foremost figure of America, and Skyhaven as his stronghold, it was inevitable that America would be under his control. However, compared to Ling Er's covert schemes, his approach was more direct. He openly defined the aliens as an invading force, and gave no explanation. Rather than waiting for them to invade, we should strike first. Now that I have confirmed their location, once we complete the space teleporter, we can lead the army to attack the other world. The successive statements caused a stir among the senior members of America. However, after a moment, as if in doubt, a voice suddenly echoed in the office, "Sir, we know nothing about the aliens right now. Isn't it too hasty to launch an attack like this?" Hearing this, Magento smirked and countered. "Do you plan to wait until they organize their forces and attack us? You should understand that if hundreds of natural disaster-class powerhouses like us attacked with full force, their combined attack can destroy even a planet. What will be waiting for us then? Do you understand?" At this point, Magento's voice grew stern. "Rather than waiting for them to organize their forces, we should strike first, forcing them to fend for themselves. Besides, we won't be fighting in our backyard, which will help ensure the safety of our planet." Dropping these words, Magento seemed to recall something and added, "Moreover, Earth is protected by the tree monster. We don't need to worry about Earth's safety. While it isn't adept at pursuing enemies, its defensive and combat abilities are more than enough to safeguard Earth." Global mobilization. This term aptly described the current state of affairs across Earth. At this moment, all the human nations, large and small alike, were like military factories, where ordinary humans were bustling around, working tirelessly. As for superhumans, who far surpassed ordinary humans, were notably not indulging in pleasure either. They, picking their weapons and donning their armors, practiced their arts in various squares and fields. Soldiers, since the era of the Transcendents, had been a rarely mentioned profession. Yet, under the directives of various countries, it had risen once more. The number of soldiers were growing at a terrifying pace. 100,000. 1 million. 10 million. In just a few months, the human army had grown significantly. Moreover, this was truly an extraordinary army, with the weakest being at least a Tier 1 superhuman. While the entire human race was rapidly gearing for war, the other mutant beast forces were not idle either. Led by major forbidden zones, they were also establishing their own legions. Among them, Misty Mountains was the most formidable. Its natural disaster legions were particularly renowned. A few months ago, it continuously suppressed continents such as Australia and Africa. And its legion commanders jointly acted to subdue the Vatican. Though they had made appearances for a fleeting moment, the natural disaster class commanders of Misty Mountains had gained a fearsome reputation. Each and every single of them was unrivaled. The Storm King, the evil tiger, as someone bearing "Storm" in his title, could create massive storms with a mere flap of his wings, leveling entire cities. The embodiment of strength, Golden Ant, known for strength, could shatter the earth and collapse mountains with a single punch. There were even rumors that he could even lift multiple mountains with one hand. And then there were also natural disaster class mutant beasts like Little Tenth and Sarcosuchus, each bearing their own fierce and legendary titles. This was the true depth of Misty Mountains' power. Under the influence of Misty Mountains, other forces on Earth have also begun to follow suit. For humans, it was nothing new. Every human nation had started forming mysterious units long ago. And for the mutant beasts, it was quite intriguing, especially the forbidden zones. The Tian Shan Mountains, a formidable forbidden zone on the Asian continent, had emerged onto the world stage under the leadership of a natural disaster class mutant seahorse and a mysterious spirit flower. Not long ago, this mutant seahorse personally emerged and declared itself king, bringing the Tian Shan region under its control. Whereas the Bermuda Triangle, another renowned and terrifying forbidden zone, had made a fleeting appearance, but it shook the entire world. Rumor had it that 3 natural disaster class powerhouses emerged from this forbidden zone, causing disturbances across many seas and shaking the sea clans. However, the sea clans happened to be currently embroiled in internal conflicts and were too preoccupied to deal with these deep-sea forbidden zones. Nevertheless, humans, relying on sophisticated instruments, managed to capture the deep-sea shadows in the Bermuda Triangle. The images painted a legion, with tens of thousands of creatures resembling sharks drifting near the Bermuda Triangle. At the center, several indescribable but extremely terrifying marine creatures could be seen lying in wait. And this was what forbidden zones were like. Whether on land or in the deep sea, they refused to remain silent and had finally made their presence known. However, before the prestige of these forbidden zones could spread, a piece of news struck like thunder in their minds: the discovery of another world. Another world has been discovered. In the depths of Tian Shan Mountains, a strange creature resembling a seahorse but pink in color, was floating calmly on the surface of the Heaven Lake. Beside him was a gorgeous snow lotus, her petals swaying as if preparing to bloom. Yes, the news of another world has been confirmed multiple times. It seems other planets have indeed developed civilizations. This is both good and bad news. The seahorse-like creature could not help but heave a sigh, a complex look appearing on his face. What do you mean? Amidst the swaying white petals, a question rang in the seahorse's ear. If the enemy is stronger and we are weaker, we'll be facing endless invasions. And if we are stronger and the enemy is weaker, with our current strength, we won't be able to get a piece of the pie. The snow lotus looked puzzled. Would the discovery of another world always lead to a conflict? Of course. Smiling, the seahorse-like creature lifted his claw-like arm and gently stroked the petals of the snow lotus. You must understand, Earth, despite its vastness, has limited resources. It is difficult to satisfy all our needs. Therefore, plundering resources from other places, such as another planet, is inevitable, and if we raid them, won't other worlds resist? Hearing this, the snow lotus nodded, seeming to understand, yet not quite. After a moment, she asks with some suspicion, is there really no possibility of peaceful coexistence with the other world? Probably not. After much contemplation, the seahorse-like creature responds softly. Everyone wished to become stronger. Everyone wanted to prove their Tao and become eternal. Thus, plundering of resources was inevitable, for all the resources belonged to someone, and resources were not going to fall from the sky, would they? More importantly, planets like Earth could only support 1 or 2 hegemons, tier 7, transcendents at most. Resources were limited, but living beings were infinite. As such, conflict was predestined. Sighing deeply, the seahorse-like creature lamented, "It seems I need to visit Misty Mountains." Why? Haven't you always kept your distance from Misty Mountains? Snow Lotus inquired with some confusion. You don't understand. Shaking his head, the seahorse-like creature smiled wryly. Currently, in this world, there are only 2 powers capable of mobilizing an army against the other world. One is Misty Mountains. Given the enigmatic strength of the tree monster, they should have long been aware of the other world's existence and might already be secretly engaging with it. The second power is the human race, which is highly unified, and their technology should be the key to war. If we want to join the war, we must choose between these 2 powers, the seahorse-like creature explained patiently, a contemplative look on his face. With his insight, he could naturally tell that Misty Mountains and the human race have some sort of connection with the other world. He reckoned that these 2 top-tier powers might even be cooperating, which begs the question who the real leader was. Inside the void space on the backside of the moon, a majestic tree, so huge that it spanned across the space above, stood tall. Its numerous branches, resembling mystical divine chains, extended farther into the depths of the void space. Its trunk rose so high that its end could not be seen. What was even more striking about it were the 9 swirling vortices of varying colors around the trunk, rotating calmly. Its long, winding roots resembled flood dragons, seemingly roaring and writhing. However, the most terrifying of them all was its primary root, which actually was an azure dragon, continuously winding around its tall trunk, its head resting on the colossal tree's canopy. The dragon eyes were fierce and majestic, and there happened to be a blood-red scar at the center of its brow. It seems to be in a state of slumber or rest. Earth has been quite restless these days. Softly chuckling, Wuxia slowly opened his eyes, looking towards a direction. Surprisingly, there happened to be a landmass in that direction. This landmass was something Wuxia had uprooted from Venus, and finally, brought into the depths of the void space, floating quietly. The landmass was teeming with mutant beasts, who were either lying down or crouching. If one laid eyes on these mutant beasts, they would be totally astonished, for each was a natural disaster-class entity. There was the legendary Storm King, Evil Tiger, standing atop a peak with folded wings. Then there were thousands of blood ravens perched on the trees. There was also an ice elemental flood dragon coiled around an ice pillar, spiraling upward. Each one was exuding a formidable presence, surrounded by fearsome spiritual energy storms. And this was the Void Continent. Wuxia had created this continent in the depths of the void space after the spar between Nether Tiger, Blood Raven, and Spirit Butterfly. The continent, originally named Ishtar Terra, was about the size of Australia. Due to Venus's thick atmosphere, meteors generally slowed down before reaching the surface, so, the craters on Venus were no larger than 3.2 kilometers, and most were low-lying plains. Thus, the continent, even without its terrain altered, was still an endless plain. Moreover, under Wuxia's control, countless cosmic roots had dug into the continent, entwining around it. As a result, the entire continent could float intact in the void space. Even spatial turbulence in the void space could not easily shake it. However, considering that only Tier 4 and above transcendents could survive in the void space, the mutant beasts existing on this void continent were all Tier 4, each one a core member of Misty Mountains. To some extent, this was the most secret base of Misty Mountains, apart from UZU's 9 realms of heaven. Of course, this void continent also had a very important function, a battle station. A station for launching attacks on other planets. This was also one of UZU's ideas. Wormholes were merely a means of transporting low-tier life forms across the universe. As for Tier 4 life forms like Nine Tails and Bull Demon, due to continuous evolution, their mass was immense, which made it difficult for them to travel through wormholes. In simple terms, smaller wormholes could not simply withstand their mass. Thus, launching invasions via the void space was the best method for these Tier 4 life forms. In fact, this was merely UZU's conjecture. In order to get the exact details, it was necessary to wait for Magneto to perfect the wormhole drive. However, judging by the reports he had received, everything was going smoothly. In just 3 months, tens of thousands of scientists had been gathered, and the principles of the wormhole drive had been deduced. Presumably, they would soon enter the testing phase. At this moment, ignoring the various disturbances on Earth, UZU raised his gaze, looking at the entities on the void continent. Master, suddenly, a soft call interrupted UZU's contemplation. Looking up, UZU saw Nine Tails slowly getting up, looking in his direction. As a matter of fact, UZU's current form was indeed as large as a continent. At present, the void continent floated quietly to his left, while his towering tree form drifted calmly to the right. Every mutant beast on the void continent could gaze upon UZU's awe-inspiring presence. With the head of the azure dragon extending from his canopy, silently observing them, his tree form appeared all the more majestic and imposing. "What's the matter, Nine Tails?" UZU asked with interest. "Master, since the news of the alien world has spread, Earth has entered a state of full mobilization after repeated confirmations. Major forces have flocked together, and many have actively contacted Misty Mountains, including forbidden zones such as Tianshan and Bermuda Triangle. Even the Sea clans have secretly reached out to us." UZU nodded slightly in response, understanding the entire reason behind this. While the alien world represented an external threat, it was also a huge opportunity. Once it was confirmed that UZU could protect the entire planet on his own, everyone promptly scrambled to divide the spoils. There were no shortages of smart people in this world. If one person could think of this, others, after some thought, would also come to the same conclusion. UZU broke into laughter, unable to hide his emotions. Then, looking at the many mutant beasts whose eyes could not stop flickering, UZU directly stated, "Handle these matters yourselves. I will not interfere. As I said before, except for matters concerning the safety of Misty Mountains or significant issues that you cannot decide, all other matters will be decided by the Supreme Council of the 9 Great Beasts." Upon hearing this, Nine Tails, Bull Demon, and other mutant beasts exchanged glances before replying in unison, "Understood, Master. We will not fail to meet your expectations." "Good." Hearing this, a smile flashed on UZU's lips. Then, he shifted his gaze on the nearby golden ant and stated, "Little Fifth, I know you don't like managing your legion. So, from now on, just follow me. What about the Legion of Light?" Golden Ant was momentarily stunned, a hint of hesitation in his eyes. However, in a moment, as if realizing something, the golden-scaled figure, resembling a golden warrior, smiled slightly. "I see." Dropping these words, Golden Ant bowed and expressed his gratitude, "Thank you for this favor, Master. I will definitely stay by your side." Nodding slightly, UZU grinned and looked towards the few figures at the far end of the continent. One, like the rising sun, radiated a dazzling light. Another, stirred up boundless waves of darkness. Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger, the embodiments of light and darkness. You too have proven your strength. I believe you are also capable of leading our legions. Starting today, Spirit Butterfly will be the commander of the Legion of Light, while Dark Tiger, you will need to establish the Legion of Darkness. Understood, Master. In unison, Spirit Butterfly and Nether Tiger promptly responded with solemn expressions. Besides the change in the commander of the Legion of Light and the Legion of Darkness being led by Nether Tiger, there will be adjustments in the other legions as well. With that, Wuxia outlined the changes and reorganized the various legions. From now on, every legion had a commander and a vice-commander, and both positions required natural disaster class combat strength. At present, Misty Mountains had a total of 7 elemental legions. They were named after the 7 space pockets of Wuxia's grand divine ability, 9 realms of heaven, excluding the pocket of mist and the mysterious pocket of void, the Legion of Ice, Fire, Life, Earth, Lightning, Light, and Darkness. Among them, the Legion of Life might be more accurately called the Legion of Vitality. However, since the Legion of Vitality did not sound as pleasant, so it was referred to as the Legion of Life. Queen Thorns served as its commander, and Osmanthus as its vice-commander. Queen Thorns had recently broken through to Tier 4. Although she had just become a Tier 4 Transcendent, her foundation was still deep and combat strength formidable. Her means were particularly sinister. After stepping into Tier 4, she had been able to convert her spiritual energy into blood energy, which allowed her to manipulate the blood of others. Just a bit of negligence on her opponent's part would allow her to drain their blood, turning them into a desiccated corpse. Adding more to the dread, she could even convert others' blood into energy for her own use. While she might still be lacking in combat strength compared to other top-tier natural disasters, her horrifying and sinister means bridged that gap. As for Osmanthus, she needed no further introduction. As a heaven and earth spirit tree, rooted on the moon, she may not be very good at pursuit, but her combat power was unparalleled on the moon. Take the present situation, for example, none of the natural disaster class mutant beasts of Misty Mountains could contend with Osmanthus on the moon. Osmanthus, also known as the immortal sweet Osmanthus tree, could heal from grave injuries instantly so long as she had ample lunar energy. In essence, she was a heaven and earth spirit tree version of the undying blood raven. However, compared to the undying blood raven, Osmanthus' combat strength was even more terrifying on the moon. After all, she was a heaven and earth spirit tree. Although cultivation was extremely long and arduous for heaven and earth spirit treasures like her, and they were targets of countless experts' greed, there was a silver lining to it. Heaven and earth spirit treasures that had matured, whether it was sweet Osmanthus or Aurora, were the top existences in their respective tier. As for Wuxia, he did not need any introduction. His combat strength had long surpassed that of prodigies and geniuses, reaching levels beyond common understanding. Reflecting on this, Wuxia could not help but think of an adage, who can truly declare themselves invincible, or boldly claim they are forever unbeaten. This saying might have been bold tens of thousands years in the future, when the world had entered the golden age of cultivation, when powerful experts could be found everywhere. However, for now, Wuxia dared to claim invincibility. For this was an era of spiritual energy resurgence, where everything started anew. Of course, the chosen heaven-connecting Jinmu was conveniently ignored by Wuxia. Perhaps it is because the heaven-connecting Jinmu had done him a favor, helping him uphold the 9 realms. Or perhaps, on a subconscious level, Wuxia had always regarded the heaven-connecting Jinmu as a tool of the heavenly Tao. In any case, Wuxia did not count it among the list of strong beings. In light of this, Wuxia could truly dare to claim himself invincible and undefeated. In today's universe, there might be those who could match his cultivation level, but no one could match his combat strength. With the Tao-protecting artifact in his hand, having reached the peak of Tier 5, and evolved in various ways beyond description, Wuxia had naturally acquired the confidence to sweep through the present world. And for this, the Tao-protecting artifact, the Radiant Galaxy, was indispensable. It had eliminated his mundane concerns and troubles, strengthening his heart of a strong. In this world, I should be invincible. With a smile in his heart, Wuxia reaffirmed this thought. If he did not have such confidence, how could he dare pursue hegemony, Tier 7, or even eternity, Tier 8? Even in the previous era, becoming a hegemon or an eternal was the mark of the era's greatest prodigies. Each and every single one of them had carved legends of their invincibility. In this new era, all ancient monsters had long since disappeared. As such, Wuxia's confidence was further bolstered. In fact, Wuxia even aspired to become the most hidden monster of this era. In tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of years, when the universe had entered the golden age of cultivation, when strong experts abound, whoever dared to claim themselves invincible and undefeated, he would secretly emerge and strike them down with a single blow. At this thought, Wuxia could not help but snicker. This was what he dreamed of the most. But for now, after casting a deep glance at the fervent gazes of the mutant beasts on the void continent, Wuxia began to issue instructions once again. There were not many instructions. In essence, Misty Mountains would be completely managed by the 9 great beasts. Each legion, led by their respective commanders, would have absolute authority. And finally, the formation of the legions would entirely depend on personal abilities. Wuxia even stated that he would not mind if they left Misty Mountains to conquer territories outside. As he continued issuing instructions, the eyes of the mutant beasts on the void continent gleamed even more brightly. However, at this moment, seemingly realizing something, Ninetails suddenly asked, "Master, why does it feel like you're leaving, and these are your final instructions?" "Final instructions, huh?" With a playful smile, Wuxia nodded in confirmation and stated frankly, "You're right, I'll be leaving soon." Hearing this, the faces of Ninetails, Bull Demon, and the other mutant beasts changed drastically, and they exclaimed in shock, "You're leaving? Master, where are you going?" Everyone broke into exclamations. Some of the more emotional mutant beasts even lunged forward. However, after a moment, Wuxia raised his branches to block the approaching white tiger and Ninetails, and explained with a smile, "The alien world is, after all, an unknown world. I want to see it for myself first. But don't worry, my strength is more than enough to guarantee my safety. What you need to do is to organize troops on Earth and be ready to launch an attack on the alien world. If possible, I will guide you from the alien world. At that time, we will coordinate and conquer the entire alien world together." As he spoke, a flash of brilliance appeared in Wuxia's eyes. He believed it was time for him to go out and explore. His spiritual energy had reached its utmost peak. His true body was also incredibly vast and powerful, resembling a continent. While his primary root had transformed into a dragon, and his branches into mystical divine chains. Each and everything pointed to one single conclusion: he had reached a kind of bottleneck. Now, in order to break through, either he could further develop the grand divine ability, 9 realms of heaven, making his space pockets grow into small worlds, or he could step into Tier 6. Either of these goals were not achievable overnight. According to Wuxia's estimate, even in this great era of spiritual energy resurgence, it would be next to impossible to achieve in less than 1,000 years. This was not an exaggeration. It was a fact. Cultivation itself was a form of evolution, and evolution was often lengthy. Wuxia's rapid rise to the peak of Tier 5 in just a few years, surpassing the progress of cultivators from the previous era who took 1,000 or even 10,000 years, was already a miracle. Now, it was time for him to consolidate his progress. In fact, Wuxia was quite satisfied with his progress. After all, many Tier 4 natural disasters of Earth, without significant opportunities, could not even touch the edge of Tier 5 after decades or even a century of accumulation. And that was the true nature of cultivation. Cultivation is ultimately a long and arduous path. As for Wuxia, having evolution points and encountering great fortunes allowed him to leap to the peak of Tier 5. Ashish, who can truly declare themselves invincible, or boldly claim they are forever unbeaten. It expresses the idea that no one can truly claim to be unbeatable or invincible, emphasizing the humility and uncertainty that even the strongest must face. It's a reminder that everyone is fallible, no matter how powerful they are. Time slowly passed by, and in the blink of an eye, spring had passed, and autumn was nigh. However, planet Alicia remained vibrant and full of life. The blazing sun hung high in the sky, while colorful flowers bloomed and grass thrived around the lake, all beneath a sky adorned with stunning red and purple hues. At dawn, just before the sun rose above the horizon, a soft pink glow bathed the eastern sky. From afar, the picturesque light resembled a delicate feathered fan. Shortly after, the fiery red sun emerged from the purple-brown mist, its reflection gleaming on the lake's surface. Instantly, the reflection of the rising sun in the lake painted a beautiful and awe-inspiring scenery. Right at that very moment, tap, 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 rapid footsteps broke the tranquility of the serene landscape as a strange creature, bearing the upper body of a human and the lower body of a deer, raced towards the lake. This was a druid. Alicia had recently birthed this peculiar species. They could harness immense natural forces to maintain balance and protect life. Druids could channel nature's primal energy to strike down their foes from a distance, unleashing divine wrath upon them. Alternatively, they could entangle enemies with magical vines, trapping them within merciless whirlwinds. Druids could also use this power to heal wounds and revive their dying companions. Furthermore, they had the ability to merge with certain animals, effortlessly taking the form of bear, cat, bird, or even fish, allowing them to adapt to various battles. Druids were unique and marvelous creatures that were the guardians of nature. However, at this moment, something happening in a secluded corner of this lake eluded this druid's notice. Crack, the space momentarily rippled before shattered like a mirror with a crisp sound. At the same time, a hint of purple slowly emerged from this crack. Finally. I've broken through this damn world's barrier, a voice filled with helplessness echoed as the touch of purple grew increasingly intense. Before long, it grew into a segment of purplish root, which soon found its way deep into the ground. At this moment, Yuziu's consciousness descended into the purple root, and he began to examine this new world. After spending more than half a month, he had finally found the weakest point in the world's barrier and managed to break through. As a matter of fact, Yuziu did find something unusual about this planet, the existence of a barrier-like layer protecting it. While the barrier was not particularly strong, a mere attack of a natural disaster was sufficient to destroy it. The problem was that Yuziu sensed psychic fluctuations within this barrier. In other words, if he forcefully broke it, it might alert certain entities in this world. Thus, Yuziu had no choice but to sneak in, like a stowaway. Fortunately, his luck was not bad. In just under half a month, Yuziu had secretly invaded a section of cosmic root deep into this world. Void energy was omnipresent, which made it ideal for such infiltration. As for Yuziu's true body, it was rooted deep within the void space on the backside of planet Alicia. The chances of being discovered were extremely low there. And even if he were discovered, with Yuziu's methods, he could either bury the threat or channel the void energy to banish it forever. However, rather than this, there were other peculiarities of this planet that made Yuziu a bit concerned. Not only were elves present here, but even the so-called deities existed here. Deities were the products of principles. In the previous era, they were a renowned and powerful race, ranking 7th among myriad races in the universe. Except, they were scarce in numbers. Although they were incredibly strong, they could not be designated as apex. Additionally, it was exceedingly difficult for the deities to cultivate, thousands of times harder than ordinary beings. Their greatest trait was their resilience. Being manifestations of principles, they were tied to them. In some sense, unless the connection between them and the principles was severed, it was nearly impossible to kill them in any real sense. Most of the time, they were either sealed away or forced into eternal slumber. And now, Wuxia had detected the presence of the deities on this planet, and Wuxia became sure of it when he, focusing his gaze, looked towards the figure slowly approaching the lakeside from afar, the humanoid figure with the head of a deer whose entire body was surrounded by strange green glow. Of course, what Wuxia focused on was not the figure itself, it was the peculiar green glow entwined around it, some sort of strange power that Wuxia had never seen before. Race, deity rank, tier, for innate talent, eternal enigma, it's intangible and exists in every corner of the world, connected to the dreams of all living beings in the material world. It is a truly ethereal existence, guarding this vibrant world within the realm of emerald dreams. Unique abilities, dream manifestation, it can use dreams to manifest its true form and impart truth to the world. Eternal fall, pulls the enemy's mind into an eternal dream, trapping them until they fall into oblivion. Wuxia chuckled, his expression growing more amused as he observed the omnipresent green energy that only he could see. It's really incredible. Wuxia could not help but marvel at the amazing deity. At this moment, the druid with the upper body of human and the lower body of a deer before him was flowing with divine energy. In other words, it was somehow connected to the deities. With that thought in mind, Wuxia took a long, hard look at this deer-headed humanoid figure. Race, druid rank, tier 2 innate talent, kinship with nature, as a child of nature, it's capable of harnessing nature's power, and even control the vines and plants. Unique abilities, polymorphism, druids can merge with various creatures, taking their forms and wielding their powers. Bear form, it can transform into a 10 meters tall bear, possessing immense strength. Bird form, it can transform into a bird and soar through the skies. Healing, it can use the vital energy to heal others. Divine grace, as a race once blessed by the god of dreams, their mental recovery speed far exceeds that of ordinary beings. Interesting, Wuxia chuckled, gaining some clarity. So, it turns out that druids are a race blessed by the so-called gods. To put it simply, the druids were dependent on gods, much like how the beasts of Misty Mountains under Wuxia's command were linked to him. Every mutant beast of Misty Mountains happened to be imbued with some degree of Wuxia's aura. They were clearly more robust as compared to other mutant beasts, and additionally, their wounds healed much faster, their recovery was far beyond that of others. Thus, Wuxia was not particularly astonished by the power of the gods. This was merely an ordinary power. At least, in Wuxia's eyes, it was very ordinary. Compared to the so-called god of dreams blessing, Wuxia's own blessing was far more powerful. With that thought, the corners of Wuxia's mouth lifted into a smile as he remarked, "It seems like the gods here aren't all that impressive." Although he said this, a rare trace of caution flickered deep within Wuxia's eyes. An unknown world. Legendary gods. And the druid before him. Everything pointed to the fact that this world was anything but ordinary. Moreover, Wuxia could feel that the concentration of spiritual energy in this world was noticeably greater than Earth. Is it just this particular location, or is the spiritual energy density across the entire planet really this high? Uncertain, Wuxia could not reach a solid conclusion. If it was simply this location, then it might be home to some heaven and earth treasures. However, if this planet's spiritual energy was indeed this high, then caution was warranted. At the very least, in places rich in spiritual energy, powerful transcendence would not be in short supply. There might even be some powerful beings that could be strong enough to give Wuxia a run for his money. Shaking his head and dispelling these thoughts, Wuxia decided not to dwell on these matters any longer. More important than these concerns was ensuring that the cosmic root he had planted firmly took root in this world. With that thought, Wuxia's tree body, which was rooted deep within the void space, surged with spiritual energy. Rumble, rumble, spiritual energy roared like crashing waves, as the segment of cosmic root absorbed it, growing bigger and stronger, accompanied by cracking sounds of bark splitting. The cosmic root began to rise from the ground. In the blink of an eye, it had grown several meters long. However, it was not merely growing, its shape was also changing. Somewhat similar to the advent of the tree world, as a medium, this cosmic root was growing into a cosmic willow tree which could host the consciousness of Wuxia's true body. The better this cosmic willow tree grew, the more power it could harness from Wuxia's true body. As for whether his true body should tear through the world's barrier and forcefully enter, after some consideration, Wuxia suppressed that idea for the time being. If he did that, it would likely alert this world, which could lead to an all-out war, and that was not what Wuxia wanted. After all, rather than a last resort like an all-out, Wuxia preferred to slowly and quietly devour this world. With a smile in his heart, Wuxia controlled the purple-tinged willow tree to continue growing. Rumble, rumble, the ground shook as countless purple roots, like giant serpents, burrowed deep into the ground. However, even more astonishing than the quakes was the visible storm of spiritual energy that began to gather. Boom, the spiritual energy storm grew increasingly fierce, while the cosmic willow tree, which hosted Wuxia's power, surged in strength at a rapid pace visible to the naked eye. In just a few breaths, it had reached Tier 3. What is this? Suddenly, the druid in the distance froze, her face changing drastically. Raising her gaze, she witnessed a towering purple spiritual energy storm rising from the ground. Purple was a symbol of mystery and extraordinariness. And the druid had never seen a spiritual energy storm of this color. Until now, she had only witnessed spiritual energy storms of green, white, red, and other colors. A purple spiritual energy storm was a first for her. What is this unsettling aura? She murmured, her brows furrowed in concern. But just then, swish, accompanied by the sound of something rapidly cutting through the air, a streak of purple light shot towards her. Not good. Her expression worsened, and her four hooves promptly kicked the ground. The next moment, with deafening roars, the vines in the vicinity of the lake seemed to come alive, shooting out in an instant like venomous snakes. However, before the vines could strike the purple light, a cold snort echoed through the air like a clap of thunder. The sheer force of the snort made the druid feel as though her chest had been struck by a hammer. To her horror, the vines that had risen to strike suddenly froze in place. Then, without warning, they swished back and coiled tightly around her body, winding around her over and over before constricting. Tiny thorns on the vines pierced her skin, causing large beads of cold sweat to form on her forehead. How is this possible? In utter disbelief, the druid stared at the purple storm in the distance, her pupils shrinking to pinpoints. The vines betrayed her. This was simply inconceivable. As a guardian of nature, plants had always been her most reliable weapon. But now, with an expression of shock and confusion, the druid's face reflected deep bewilderment. However, before she could say anything, an icy and authoritative voice suddenly echoed through the air, "Aurora, restrain her. I need information about this world." "Yes, master." With a melodious voice like chimes of silver bells, a terrifying psychic force shot out like a sharp spike, piercing into her mind. Ah! A sudden, sharp scream pierced through the forest. At the source, a girl with long, emerald-green hair and a slender, upright figure, her limbs resembling a deer's, could be seen stumbling before collapsing to the ground. The night gradually grew darker and colder. Unlike the night sky of Earth, the night sky of Alicia was far more vast and magnificent. 3 purple moons hung high in the night sky, surrounded by countless twinkling stars. This was one of the unique features of Alicia. According to the myths, this world was blessed by the moon goddess. Wuxia was not particularly concerned about this myth. However, one thing did catch his attention: at night, the spiritual energy on this planet did indeed increase slightly. Furthermore, the spiritual energy in the air became more volatile, and harder to control. This world has many secrets, Wuxia thought to himself, his gaze turning to the figure standing quietly before him. Bernice, the druid with the lower body of deer and upper body of human, was an extraordinary warrior from a small druid village in this forest. At only 17 or 18 years old, she had already reached Tier 2. Given the druid's long lifespans, which spanned several centuries, she was equivalent to a mere 6 or 7 years old in human terms. This made Bernice an undisputed prodigy. Moreover, Wuxia's eyes flashed with surprise as he studied her closely. Her long hair, cascading down her back like waves, were emerald in color and radiated an intense vitality. Her features were delicate, her skin smooth like porcelain, glowing with a soft, moist luster. Her facial structure resembled that of a Western beauty from Earth, with well-defined and prominent features, and her eyes were a striking amber with hints of green. Her long, pointed ears happened to be twitching constantly at this moment, seemingly in fear and nervousness. If one were to focus solely on her upper body, even Wuxia could not help but feel a twinge of sympathy for her. However, looking down, he saw the body of a deer. Her sleek, streamlined body was pure white, dotted occasionally with small yellow spots. Her 4 long, slender legs were poised and graceful, but she kept shifting nervously, betraying her unsettled heart. She had merely come to the lakeside for water. She had never expected to run into such a terrifying creature. Gulp, swallowing hard and suppressing the sharp pain in her mind, Bernice cautiously lifted her gaze toward the strange entity not far away. A tree, a strange purple tree. Its thousands of branches swayed in the air, leaving purple traces in their wake. The tree was massive, and radiated a constant purple glow. Just one glance at it felt like being drawn into a vortex, as if it might devour her. What left her even more terrified was the fact that this strange tree seemed to be sifting through her memories. I never expected such an evil ancient tree to appear. I will never submit, she shouted, clenching her fists in defiance. Her words were full of unyielding determination. Although Wuxia did not understand her language, her spirit fluctuations did not lie. Wuxia grasped the meaning behind Bernice's words in just a flash. Ancient tree, Wuxia smirked, his eyes reflecting a hint of interest. In this world, an ancient tree was a respectful title for trees that possessed wisdom. Perhaps due to the influence of the druids or elves, there were quite a few ancient trees in this world. One example was the elves' sacred relic, the ancient tree of life. It was so massive that its trunk blotted out the sky, its top end impossible to see. Its branches were densely covered in leaves, which exuded an overwhelming vitality, as if it was constantly surging forth. It was incredibly terrifying. This tree was the greatest treasure of the elves, situated in the deepest part of their realm. It was rumored to possess extraordinary abilities, and there were even rumors that the highest-ranking elves were born from the ancient tree of life. Aside from the ancient tree of life, there were also other peculiar ancient trees, like the ancient tree of wisdom. The ancient tree of wisdom could enlighten beings, granting sentience to all living creatures. Near it, mutant beasts, or more accurately, magical beasts, would develop high intelligence. And this was the nature of this strange world, a world with a fully developed transcendental system. Technologically, it was only at the level of Earth's medieval period. Things like muskets represented the peak of their technological advancements. However, in terms of transcendental systems, this world was surprisingly well established. Perhaps this was because the elves and even the gods were once powerful races from a previous era. Their legacy of transcendental energy was very complete. Even the mutant beasts were given the notable title of magical beasts. The spiritual energy in this world was called mana, similar to how the Western world of Earth referred to it. However, these details were not what mattered. What mattered most was that, through Bernice's memories, Wuxia realized that the resurgence of spiritual energy in this world had begun decades earlier than on Earth. Yu's mind was in complete turmoil as a wave of helpless frustration overwhelmed him. Yu realized that this world could not be underestimated. A resurgence of spiritual energy that began decades earlier was no trivial matter. It meant that cultivation in this world had a head start of several decades. Aside from anomalies like Yu himself, the strength and number of other powerful beings might far surpass those on Earth. However, there was a silver lining: this world was not very large. It was roughly the same size as Earth before Earth welcomed its own resurgence of spiritual energy. And this size was when planet Alicia had grown after the resurgence of spiritual energy. The entire world consisted of just one continent, and the rest was ocean. Of course, it was possible that Bernice's knowledge was limited. Besides the newly emerged druid race, there are also the elves, orcs, dwarves, and even the dragons. Muttering, Yu's playful expression deepened. Setting aside other matters, just the mere fact that dragons might exist on this planet intrigued Yu. He believed that if Little Tenth, Lightning Dragon, and Old Fourth, Sarcosuchus, who possessed pure rock dragon bloodline, arrived on Alicia, the entire dragon clan might be alarmed. Simply because, in Bernice's memory, most of the dragons in this world were not of pure blood. The true pure-blood dragons stood at the pinnacle of the dragon clan and were known as the Dragon Kings, terrifying beings that were like natural disasters, embodiments of both destruction and power. The entire dragon clan had only 3 true dragon kings: a black dragon, a red dragon, and a gold dragon. The rest were all descendants. Even their population was very low, they only had 100 members. Even so, the dragon clan remained the undisputed rulers of this world, standing at the top of the food chain. That was because, apart from the juvenile giant dragons, the dragon clan had over 10 tier for transcendence, a rank this world hailed as comparable to the gods. The dragon clan is truly blessed. Yu chuckled to himself, unfazed by this revelation. Aside from the 3 dragon kings, most of the giant dragons can only be considered wyverns. Even those who have reached tier 4 have questionable combat prowess. And with the power I wield, there's no reason to worry. Moreover, in true warfare, the strongest beings only determine the outcome of isolated battles. The factor that would truly tip the scales of the battle would be the endless army. In this regard, this world truly has no hope of competing with Earth. With the human race's advanced technology, the scales of victory are already tipped in Earth's favor. To put it simply, an army of 100,000 soldiers from Earth, armed to the teeth, can easily crush a million-strong army of this world. As for interference from Tier 3 or Tier 4 transcendence, are Earth's powerhouses pushovers. Even if they are the powerhouses of Misty Mountains weak? Now, the most crucial task at hand is to wait for Magneto to establish the wormhole drive, so that Earth's army can be brought over. As for me, Yu raised his gaze slowly, a hint of anticipation showing on his face. It's time to plunder this world for all it's worth. Bernice, is it? A sudden murmur drifted to the ears of the druid, Bernice. The voice was pleasant, and extremely captivating. Yet, despite its gentle and refined tone, it sent shivers down the young druid's spine, draining the color from her face. It was because at that moment, to her astonishment and utter terror, countless purple roots wove together, weaving a tall figure draped in a purple robe. The figure's face was obscured by a thin veil of mist, but his deep, dark eyes flickered with a mysterious gleam. It seemed as if they were capable of piercing through one's soul. Suddenly, with just one step, the figure appeared right in front of her, seemingly crossing space itself, hovering in the air. This is my first time in this world. Would you like to be my apostle? While his tone sounded like a question, in Bernice's eyes, filled with disbelief, a finger was already pressed on her forehead. No, I don't want to. Her scream was filled with terror, her struggles frantic, as green mana surged out of her. However, before it could even reach Yuziyu, every bit of energy melted like snow under the sun. An invisible barrier seemed to be present before him, blocking everything. At that moment, if one was looking behind Yuziyu's humanoid form, they would have witnessed a verdant vortex manifesting in a flash, and disappearing the very next moment. That was the pocket of vitality, and it was capable of absorbing life-rich energy. To Yuziyu, the nature energy surging from Bernice's body was nothing more than food. In Bernice's eyes, though, this sight deepened her horror, and she could not help but cry out loud, "Monster, you're truly a monster." Her scream, sharp and grating, had none of the gentle tone from before. But then, boom, with a sudden roar, Bernice's figure shook fiercely, as a wisp of blood-red energy spread from Yuziyu's fingertips, seeping into Bernice's forehead. At the same time, a blood-red pentagram, resembling a magic circle, slowly appeared beneath her. Blood covenant, done. As Yuziyu fiercely shouted, spiritual energy surged from him, causing his long hair to billow upward. Bernice, meanwhile, lost all control of her body, and her figure slowly rose into the air with a boom, seemingly lifted by an invisible force. Blood-red markings spread across Bernice's skin, weaving and engraving themselves in intricate patterns. As they crisscrossed over her body, Bernice's once vibrant green hair began to darken. Within mere moments, her green locks had transformed into the darkest shade of purple. Even more shocking, her once snow-white skin began to turn black. Does binding a blood covenant with void energy always turn out like this? With rare curiosity in his voice, a surprised look appeared on Yuziyu's face. His current form was the Void Willow, and as such, he naturally wielded the void energy. The void space, as the back side of the universe, carried an inherently corrupting nature. For Yuziyu, however, this power was unexpectedly useful. Its incredible ability to break defenses and penetrate anything, along with its subtle nature, made it very effective. It was the void energy that had allowed Yuziyu to slip into this world unnoticed. And now, binding a blood covenant with the void energy had such an unexpected result. For some reason, Yuziyu suddenly lifted his gaze and looked towards the night sky, mumbling, "I am becoming more and more like the evil gods in myths and legends that lead others into corruption." A grin spread across Yuziyu's face. He did not mind it at all. As far as he was concerned, energy itself, no matter what type, was neither right nor wrong. It all depended on the one wielding it. If what some called corruption could lead him to reaching the eternal realm, then it was of little to no consequence to him. At this moment, Yuziyu slowly lowered his gaze. With a deafening roar, a storm of purple spiritual energy began swirling around him, and visible to the naked eye, a purple shadow slowly descended from the sky, its long violet hair dancing with the wind. The deer-like form, now entwined with purple markings, bent down gracefully on its forelegs. "I, Bernice, greet Master," greeted the druid. The once talented druid had her mind utterly rewired under Yuziyu's blood covenant, truly corrupting her. However, it was not darkness that had corrupted her. Dark energy, though terrifying, was insignificant compared to the obscure yet menacing aura now emanating from the girl before him. It was void energy, a higher and far more dangerous energy. What Yuziyu had not anticipated was that a blood covenant bound with the void energy would grant his apostle mastery over that same power. "The void's corruption is far beyond what I imagined," murmuring to himself, Yuziyu felt a flicker of caution. "This power might silently erode me as well if I'm not careful." However, he believed it was not the time to dwell on this. There were far more important tasks at hand. He then turned his attention to the purple figure kneeling before him. He noticed how much colder Bernice had become compared to her previously cute, girl-next-door demeanor. More importantly, she had broken through from Tier 2 to Tier 3, her power now dramatically elevated. "Bernice," Yuziyu softly called out. The girl before him shuddered before she lowered her head further and responded in a cold voice, "Yes, Master." "Show me your newfound powers." "Yes, Master." With those words, the druid slowly rose to her feet, gazing at a nearby dense forest. Vine strangle, her cold voice rang out, and Bernice's amber eyes, now tinged with purple, narrowed in concentration. Zoom, a flash of purple spiritual energy streaked through the air. The next moment, to Yu's surprise, the entire forest, covering hundreds of square meters, shuddered as countless vines and trees became infused with a purple aura. Boom, 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 continuous explosions erupted throughout the forest, as vines and trees, like a torrential storm. Amidst continuous explosions, the vines and trees shredded everything into oblivion. Within moments, all that remained in Yu's sight was a barren wasteland, with hundreds of purple vines and branches swaying silently under the night sky. But then, bird form. With another cold command, Bernice's entire body was engulfed in a sphere of purple light. Through the glow, Yu could faintly make out her slender form shifting and transforming. When the light finally faded, a massive purple bird, 3 to 4 meters in size, appeared before Yu. Its piercing eyes gleamed like an eagle's, and its feather, now purple, shimmered with a deep, mysterious light. Boom! A single flap of her wings created a fierce gust of wind blowing through the air. This was the druid's most renowned polymorphing art, bird form, which greatly enhanced their speed and agility, as well as granting the keen insight of a predator bird. Not bad, Yu praised in a calm voice, a glint of admiration flickering in his eyes. Yu was truly impressed. Unlike the brute and primitive technique seen on Earth, this world, specifically within the druid race, showcased a seamless fusion of technique and spiritual energy that was truly remarkable. This was not only due to their extraordinary racial innate talents but also their ancient heritage. And now, as the purple wings flapped, unleashing a fierce storm, a flicker of eerie glow flashed briefly around the massive purple bird. That was the Void's Edge, a unique trait possessed only by the Void race. Though Bernice, the druid, was not originally of the Void race, because Yu had used the Void energy as a medium to form a blood covenant with her, the Void energy had corrupted her. As for whether that corruption of Void space was good or bad, Yu could not say for sure. But for now, it seemed beneficial. At least, from Yu's perspective, Bernice's combat power had taken a significant leap. Especially. Yu narrowed his eyes, before a line of purple text appeared before his eyes. Void's Edge, derived from the Void energy, it allows her to bypass most defenses and tear through flesh with ease. With a grin, Yu turned his gaze to the massive purple bird, its feathers gleaming with a cold light, and the claws that constantly shimmered with an eerie glow. His anticipation grew. If anyone were struck by those claws, its target would definitely be gravely wounded if not dead. Yu did not dwell on this for very long. He slowly raised his gaze, gazing into the dark night sky, and commanded, "Go now. I want to see this entire forest around me ravaged in the name of the Void." "Yes, master." With a slight nod, Bernice, still in her bird form, flapped her wide wings. Boom! Ripples of purple energy spread through the sky for thousands of meters, as a massive storm blew through the sky, bending the surrounding forest under its immense pressure. At the same time, an aura of dread, both ominous and terrifying, descended upon the forest, suffocating everything in its grasp. Star and Moon Village was a small settlement nestled within this forest, with a population of only about 30 people, most of whom were druids, and a few elves. One of them was even a high elf, a blood elf, possessing a pair of blood-red amber eyes. Elves and druids had always shared a close bond. One was known as the guardian of nature, while the other was regarded as the child of nature. Naturally, their relationship was anything but ordinary. Just as Bernice's aura erupted, the face of Star and Moon villagers instantly turned pale all of a sudden, seemingly sensing something. Especially the slender girl with blood-red amber eyes, whose expression changed the most rapidly. This aura, it's somewhat familiar, yet ominous, gazing deeply towards the edge of the forest. Latia's pupils narrowed to pinpricks. But in a moment, a cold gust of wind blew on their faces, carrying along a stench of blood. Adding to Latia's unease, countless beastly cries pierced the night sky. Roar, roar, screech, screech, the entire forest was enveloped in a sense of desolation. Moments later, innumerable winged magical beasts took flight. These beasts were not powerful, just some unevolved or Tier 0 thunderbirds, or a few Tier 1 winged beasts. However, before they could rise into the sky, with a deafening roar, streaks of purple light descended from the sky, engulfing these winged magical beasts. Their cries of despair were never even heard. What remained were only their bodies, continuously melting like blood. Under the terrifying corrosion of the void energy, these weak creatures could not even keep their complete forms. At the same time, Ding, your apostle just killed a Tier 0 level 7 Thunderbird, evolution points plus 50. Ding, your apostle just killed a Tier 0 level 7 Thunderbird, evolution points plus 50. The successive system notifications echoed in Yuziu's mind, causing him to pause in surprise. As his apostle, it was not unusual for him to gain evolution points through their act of killing other creatures. What was intriguing was the fact that these evolution points were not halved. When other apostles slayed any creature on Earth, the evolution points he received were significantly reduced. For example, killing a Tier 0 level 8 mutant beast would typically offer less than 20 evolution points, sometimes even less. But now, he was receiving far more than that. Lost in thought, a thoughtful look blanketed Yuziu's face. Is it because I've grown stronger that my apostles' kills yield more evolution points, or is there something unique about this world? With a hint of suspicion, Yuziu glanced at the sky, at a feeble Tier 0 level 8 Thunderbird. Boom, just with a mere glance of this, the Thunderbird's body suddenly stiffened. In moments, as if deprived of vitality, it began to fall towards the ground. At the same time, a system notification rang in Yuziu's ears. Ding, you killed a Tier 0 level 8 Thunderbird, evolution points plus 60. Hearing this, Yuziu's lips curled into a slight smile, confirming. Indeed, my apostle's kill yields more evolution points, almost on par with my own kills. A realization dawned on Yuziu as he looked towards Bernice, who was making her way deeper into the forest, a look of anticipation on his face. It seems that this trip will be filled with surprises. After all, Yuziu would never complain about having too many evolution points. Although he currently had billions of evolution points in stock, his current expenditure was substantial. Not to mention the upgrading various innate talents, even just entering a state of enlightenment for his main body and devising formations required an extraordinary amount of evolution points. Every second consumed hundreds of thousands of evolution points. One could say, Yuziu's profound understanding of formations was built upon an enormous quantity of evolution points. If possible, I could create a few more apostles within the limits of my mental capacity. Murmuring to himself, Yuziu became lost in thought. With apostles gathering evolution points for him, Yuziu would no longer need to exert much effort. However, Yuziu only planned on recruiting only Tier 1 or Tier 2 individuals with extraordinary talent as his apostles. Tier 3 or Tier 4 transcendents possessed mental power that could not be underestimated. While Yuziu could manipulate their minds through blood covenant, doing so would place a certain burden on his own mind. Given the current number of apostles he had, recruiting 10 or so Tier 3 or Tier 4 apostles was already his limit. However, if he recruited Tier 1 or Tier 2 transcendents as apostles, the mental strain would not be a concern. More importantly, turning Tier 2 transcendents into apostles and then nurturing them to Tier 3 would not significantly increase his mental load. In this way, all Yuziu needed to do was invest some resources to cultivate these Tier 1 or Tier 2 apostles into Tier 3 or even Tier 4 transcendents. Of course, it would be best to cultivate them into powerful Tier 4 transcendence. At present, Tier 3 transcendence were not enough. Only Tier 4 transcendence could be truly useful. I should keep an eye out for exceptional geniuses that are in Tier 1 or Tier 2, smiling to himself, Wuxia made a firm decision. He would sow seeds of chaos and, once they grew, cooperate with Earth to attack this alien world in one fell swoop. As for Wuxia himself, he would remain in the shadows as much as possible. He believed that the more he exposed himself, the more vulnerable he would become. Wuxia did not want to be the target of anyone's schemes. After all, playing these intricate games was exhausting. Focusing on stable development was the more sensible approach. Meanwhile, in the Star and Moon village, tap, 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 faint sounds of footsteps echoed in the distance, quickly drawing nearer. As the sound drew their gazes toward it, the villagers of Star and Moon village were stunned by what they saw, an icy figure, both familiar and unfamiliar, with long purple hair billowing in the wind. Its body resembled that of a deer, etched with complex and mysterious purple patterns. As her four limbs lightly touched the ground, ripples of purple light spread across the ground. Bernice, oh my God, how did you end up like this? Bernice, are you okay? Amidst exclamations of shock, several towering and robust druids rushed forward, all larger than Bernice. But before they could approach her, a flash of white light suddenly intercepted them. Don't get closer. Something is strange about Bernice. The speaker, an elderly, bearded druid with a sturdy build, narrowed his eyes and stared intently at Bernice. He was the village chief of Star and Moon village and the only Tier 3 transcendent in the village. But now, he realized something shocking. Bernice, who was only a teenager, had somehow become a Tier 3 transcendent. What was even more astonishing was that she seemed not to recognize them at all. Her gaze was filled with icy coldness. Surrender, or face destruction. Her lips parts, and uttered chilling words that seemed to freeze the very air. What are you talking about, Bernice? In disbelief, Bernice's former best friend, an elf named Latia from a distant tribe, called out in shock. However, she didn't receive any response, only indifference. Bernice, now controlled by Wuxia's blood covenant, had her mind twisted, leaving her with little to no emotion for her former friends or even her own family. This was one of the side effects of the corruption of the void. It gradually erases a creature's emotions, making them seem like a completely different person. Even though they live, they resemble soulless beings, driven only by their most primal instincts. Every void creature, after all, was driven by some sort of basic desire. For instance, Zilien's actions were dominated by his strong desire for evolution, and that monstrous creature that resembled a continent was dominated by its insatiable hunger. Now, Bernice, corrupted by void energy, was heading down a similar path. Once she completely lost all her emotions and fully awakened to her original desires, she would irreversibly transform into a true void creature. This was the most terrifying aspect of the corruption of the void. Wuxia was unaware of this, but even if he knew, he would not care. To him, an apostle like Bernice was merely a tool, and he would never develop feelings for a tool. No matter how well a tool functions, it remains just that, a tool. At this moment, Bernice slowly raised her hand as a ball of purple energy began to swirl within her palm, slowly growing bigger. What was even more suffocating was the sight of countless air currents swirling into a massive storm, lifting Bernice's purple hair into the air. Stop, Bernice! Suddenly, a frantic cry broke the tension. The village chief, noticing Bernice's actions, accelerated and charged towards her, with nature energy surged around him. At the same time, a beastly roar escaped the village chief's mouth. His body rapidly expanded, black hair sprouting all over him as a vortex of wind erupted from the ground. Moments later, a towering, 10-meter-tall black bear emerged from the center of the storm, drawing even the interest of the distant Wuxia. This was his bear form. The village chief of Star and Moon village excelled at polymorphing. He could wield the strength of a giant bear and possess unparalleled defensive capabilities. Roar! Another beastly roar, far more fearsome and louder than before, reverberated through the forest. The ground cracked and even the sky darkened under the bear's overwhelming presence. For a moment, everyone around struggled to breathe. "Bernice, stop right now!" the village chief bellowed once more. Seeing Bernice raise her hand, the giant bear also lifted its right paw and swiped down powerfully. Boom! The bear's paw came so hard that the sheer force of it stirred up a violent storm. In the next moment, the purple energy ball in Bernice's hand shot out, colliding with the giant bear's massive paw with a deafening boom, as clouds of dust filled the air. Consequently, the ground quaked, as if a mini earthquake had been triggered, rippling across a radius of several dozen kilometers. The villagers of Star and Moon Village struggled to stand, swaying precariously. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.